An entitled intern literally walks into my job thinking that he's an executive, essentially throwing away the greatest opportunity he would ever have in a career that he has effectively tanked. Here's how it happened. To start things out, I want to say that a lot of things have changed in my office this year, including almost our entire senior leadership being replaced. I work in a pretty prestigious office, which makes for an amazing starting place for any intern. And speaking of which, along with the leadership change, we got 2 new interns. Both were brought on purely because of their parents. The first one, who we will call Jack, is about my age, in his mid-20s, never went to college, and has no prior experience. He wants to learn, he's humble, he keeps his head down, and he works hard and tries to understand everything around him. The second intern, who we will call Tanner, is a little bit younger and more traditional college-educated hire with some relevant internship experience. On the first day, Tanner walked in with the most stupidly entitled attitude I've ever seen in my life. He's convinced he's an expert when he might be one of the dumbest people I've ever encountered. He bullies Jack with condescending language, constant put-downs, and treats him like an assistant. And he cringe-worthily spends a lot of his time in the office trying to flirt with female colleagues who are blatantly not interested. Also, remarkably enough, he has a long-distance girlfriend. Worst of all is that he reserves the worst behavior for our black and female coworkers. Now, as a literal fetus, he spent weeks trying to boss much more experienced and respected and knowledgeable coworkers around. This eventually culminated in a massive public outburst where he warned a 50-year-old senior lawyer that they were going to have a problem if that's the way you react, after she gently brushed off one of his stupid demands aside in a group chat. Now, generally they are just ignored, but he was being particularly insistent that day. In contrast, he is respectful to me, doesn't bug me as I don't really give him the time of day, and hilariously tries to deepen his voice by a whole octave when he talks to me. Now, I'm a guy, I'm white, I'm tall and conventionally good looking. I have a good reputation in my workplace, but I don't have the experience or the seniority of the colleague that he threw a fit at. As soon as I heard about his fit, I texted our boss because the lawyer is a friend of someone I respect. We then chatted and agreed that Tanner's outburst was unacceptable. And this was less of a discussion and more of us coming together and being like, wow, this is absolutely unacceptable. The following day, Tanner received what can only be described as a third butthole. Apparently, he genuinely thought he was an executive, but it was made exceedingly clear to him that he was, in fact, an intern. He's managed to alienate the entire office at this point, and it looks like he's set to be transferred to an office that senior leadership wants to get rid of, essentially throwing away one of the best opportunities he will probably ever have in his life. Oh man, this is really cringy behavior because I can't imagine actually acting like that and thinking you can get away with that. It's like, dude, you have to know you're an intern, right? Like, there's no way you're gonna sit there and be like, oh, I'm in charge. I'm actually an executive and these people are below me. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Just because you got the job based on nepotism doesn't mean you get to act like an idiot. And now he's essentially guaranteed to get fired and not be able to work there anymore. Like, they're sending him off to his grave. Like, this guy's an idiot. Because I know for a fact when I was an intern at other jobs, I would literally put my head down and work hard. I would do the best that I can and not think twice about it. And not for a second would I ever pretend to be an executive and boss around people who have years of experience on me, because that is a surefire way to eventually get fired. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My insecure neighbor demands that I put a shirt on anytime I mow my lawn in front of his wife. So I decide to get some petty revenge by wearing booty shorts anytime I mow my lawn, while also keeping my shirt off the entire time. Here's how it went down. I'm a 34-year-old male and I've been in my current neighborhood now for going on 3 years. For all 3 years, on especially hot days, I have always mowed my yard, usually shirtless and in shorts. I feel like this is a fairly normal thing for most men to do, at least from what I've seen in my neighborhood. Well, earlier this year, my neighbors directly across from me, a couple maybe in their high 30s, have become a bit of a problem. The wife works from home and the husband doesn't. And I also work from home, so sometimes I mow during random moments of the day. The wife always makes small talk with me and we run into each other often when she's doing yard work or on walks around the neighborhood. Well, fast forward to last week and I was mowing at around 5:00 p.m. and I was literally just wrapping up mowing and his wife was out watering plants, so she came by and we chatted it up. Now, not much later, her husband pulls up, I say hi and we chat a bit longer, and then we go our separate ways. Later that night, I get a random direct message from this man, no idea how he got my info by the way, and he went on this long rant about how I'm a homeowner and I need to cover up when I'm mowing my own yard. Well, I told him to kick rocks and stop being an insecure little jerk. And to top it all off, the next time I mowed my lawn, I ensured that I took it up a notch and wore some revealing shorts to match match not wearing a shirt. And sure, it is pretty petty, but you know what? I honestly just don't care. This guy was being a complete moron. Yeah, I love this so much because that guy was being super insecure. He was trying to be like, you need to cover up around my wife. You're being way too revealing. Put a shirt on. And it's like, dude, it's hot outside and you're on your property. It's not against the law and you're literally not bothering anybody. So for him to make this dog whistle complaint of like, oh, you're hitting on my wife, which is really what he was like getting at if you really think about it. Like, that's crazy and that is so stupid. And the problem here resides literally with the neighbor and nobody else. My job tried to fire me for breaking a policy that I never signed up for. So I got revenge by literally reporting them and getting their license pulled. Here's what happened. So I used to work at a shop that sold alcohol among other things. It wasn't the worst job, but management was sloppy. There was no proper training, barely any oversight, and definitely no paperwork confirming we had been taught the legal stuff like checking ID properly. One day I was suddenly called in and sacked for a breach of company policy because I supposedly didn't follow the ID check process correctly. But the twist in the story is that I'd never been properly trained. Not once. Not on paper, not in person. They had nothing to show I ever even saw the policy. I asked for proof and they simply couldn't provide it because it didn't exist. So I left quietly and professionally, and then I reported them to the proper licensing authority. It turns out selling alcohol without ensuring staff are trained in ID checks is a serious breach, especially if you can't prove the training ever happened. Well, as a result, their license to sell alcohol was completely gone, and now they can't sell booze at all. I'm also seeking compensation because getting fired over a rule you were never taught isn't just shady, it's super illegal. They really tried to play with me, and as a result, ruined their business in the process. Yeah, this is one of those situations where they literally try to catch you on something that they themselves have not trained you on. So in my mind, this is a great example of yes, you absolutely should report people, especially if they're trying to do you wrong in some way that is absolutely unacceptable. My sister-in-law and her family are staying with me until June 15th, and right now she's demanding that I stop eating ice cream every night as it's disturbing her daughter and causing a lot of problems for her and her husband. But I told her no, as this is something I've done for a while and I simply want to have it after my meal. And as a result, I'm starting to think I might be the jerk and I just now don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so most nights after dinner, I eat a small ice cream cone. It's literally just the little Joy mini cups with a tiny little scoop of ice cream. Maybe a big scoop if I'm having a rough day, but that's kind of rare. I don't drink alcohol or smoke the herb or do anything fun, so this is my one thing I do for myself. My brother and his wife and daughter are staying with me for a few weeks. They'll be gone by June 15th, and I'm happy to have them here. Usually we'll eat dinner together and then go our separate ways for the evening. They watch a lot of TV, so they're usually all in the living room watching. Now, I've been eating my little cone, but my sister-in-law approached me and asked me if I could stop. She said that my niece is starting to ask why she doesn't have an ice cream cone, and that obviously she was lied to by my sister-in-law when she told her ice cream is a sometimes food. Well, I said that I wasn't going to stop, but I could wait until she was in bed. I figured that was a good compromise, and I do get that she's trying to raise her little girl to have a healthy relationship with food, but waiting until she was in bed didn't work because she came into the kitchen multiple times to ask me for some. My sister-in-law was definitely a little incredulous over it and kept saying, "Really? Do you really need to eat ice cream every single day?" or stuff like that. But I responded by saying no, but she also doesn't need to drink a glass of wine every day either. Well, she didn't like this and sighed a bunch and has been visibly annoyed with me ever since then. My brother asked me if I could also just stop to avoid the drama, but I said I deserve my little treats. So am I the jerk for refusing to like give up my ice cream every night? Because right now I feel like I'm the bad guy and I just don't know what to do. Okay, I think your sister-in-law is being very rude here. I totally understand that she's trying to be like, okay, I don't want my kid having ice cream, but also you could just tell your kid, hey, you're not having ice cream, you need to drop it. Like, it really can be that simple. Sure, the kid's not going to be happy, but guess what? You're a visitor here. This is not your house. And the fact that she wants you to change your behavior before correcting her own kid is just so weird in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk for choosing to eat ice cream, because at the end of the day, this is your house and you can do whatever you want. Am I the jerk for celebrating my birthday without my main friend group after they rescheduled around babysitters again? Because after dealing with this for so many times, I'm honestly at my breaking point, and I'm seriously so done having to accommodate them, but never getting it the other way around. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 26-year-old female and I've been part of this friend group ever since college. We're close, we consistently hang out and have friend game nights. Now the kicker is that I'm the only person in the group without kids. Everyone else is busy raising toddlers and infants. While it seems fair, they've been putting on more and more adults-only events. Fancy dinners, wine tastings, and events such as that. And this is great, right? Well, actually no. The adults-only events are literally during times that I'm working my restaurant shifts in the evenings or the weekends, because those are the times they're babysitters are available. I've expressed multiple times that it would be great to have daytime events or meetups during the week to do things, since my schedule is very flexible during the day. But they always just say, oh, we'll try for that next time, but it just never happens. But last month was the final straw. My birthday fell on a Sunday, and I asked them if we could do a celebration during the last day since I was working that night, and they agreed. Then the day before my celebration, the group chat exploded, stating that they were actually now changing it to an evening event because apparently Sarah's babysitter canceled, but they can do 7 p.m. instead. Now at this point, I was so done. So I made my own plans for my birthday with my coworkers, who were able to show up and post pictures on social media of all of us having the best time at brunch, as well as escaping an escape room. Now my original friend group is hurt, stating that I didn't even tell them that we changed the plans. They are now calling me petty, that I should understand that finding childcare is hard, but I'm over being the only one who is expected to accommodate everyone else 100% of the time. I also think my job counts as an adult responsibility too, and I shouldn't have to miss my own birthday for their babysitter problems. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, this is so annoying. Okay, you mean to tell me that because Sarah's babysitter canceled, that means the entire event has to be switched around? It's like, no, that means Sarah's not going. That doesn't mean your birthday party is going to be rescheduled. Like, what's going on right now? That's so stupid. So no, I don't blame you for being like, listen, I'm not going to do this anymore. Things always get changed at my expense, and I'm sick of dealing with it. Because it really does, in my opinion, just from the outside looking in, seem like you're the third wheel of the friend group, and that really sucks. And that is something you do not deserve in the slightest. Am I the jerk for posting screenshots of my sister-in-law's text messages online that literally make her look bad, as she was demanding things out of me and my wife that were completely absurd? Here's how it all went down. I'm a 29-year-old female, and my wife had our son 6 days ago. The pregnancy was complicated, and they had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, which resulted in them coming early. They're currently in the neonatal unit, and my wife and I are practically living there so we can spend time with our boys. My brother and his wife got married 2 days ago, and I didn't want to leave my sons or my wife, so I missed the wedding. Though I did send them their gift from us and a text wishing them a fantastic day, and I thought nothing more of it. Well, yesterday I got a text from my new sister-in-law explaining that because my wife and I missed the wedding, she would need us to send her $140 for our plates of food. I asked her if she was joking, and she told me that she could understand why my wife couldn't go as she had to stay in the hospital, but that apparently I wasn't the one who gave birth, so I could have went and saved 2 plates of food from going to waste. Well, I told her that she was being ridiculous, and I asked if my brother was aware that she was asking his sister for money for food. Well, she just brushed that off and said that weddings were expensive, and she had tried to recoup her losses, and this should be between us as women to women. Now, between this and her thinking that I should have gone anyways, I will admit that I lost my temper, and at this point, I ended up taking screenshots of the conversation and posting it on Facebook. Well, this shocked several people in the family, and she must have gotten bombarded with messages as she told me to take it down, as I was making her look bad, and that people were taking it out of context and thinking that she was some kind of villain. My brother called me and told me not to worry about the money and that it was stupid to expect us to pay for the plates, but he did ask me to take the post down and that he would handle it. I mean, he seemed kind of shocked by her even asking about this in the first place. So seriously, did I go too far? My wife is mostly upset by our sister-in-law's comments about how I wasn't the one who gave birth, as if this makes me any less of their mother. Maybe I should have handled it better, but I will admit at the time I wasn't thinking very clearly. What should I do? Okay, first off, I don't blame you for putting that post up on Facebook, but also I think this really should have gone to your brother first. If anything, I would send it to the brother and be like, look, do you want to take care of this or do I need to escalate it? Because what this lady asked of you is crazy. Who cares if you're not the person that gave birth? You're trying to be there for your kids and your wife. Like seriously, your sister-in-law's being so ignorant and callous. It is super uncalled for and just so tone deaf. So no, overall, I don't think you're the jerk. I think this could have been handled more privately, but also I think your sister-in-law will think twice before she tries anything like this again, because her reputation has pretty much been shot for probably the next 10 years, which by the way is her own fault and nobody else's. Am I the jerk for canceling a trip all because my friend not only can't afford it, but was also expecting me to pay for everything? Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a close friend who has always been asking me for months to go to LA for a fun summer trip. Now, we live about 8 hours away, so I kind of just assumed that we would fly there. And the other day when she brought it up, I told her that we should probably book our flight soon. And when I said that, she looked really confused and told me how she couldn't afford plane tickets and that she wanted to drive there. Now, I was sort of confused because if she can't afford a $150 plane ticket, how was she planning to pay for the activities and places that she wanted to go, namely jet skiing and shopping and going to the clubs, which by the way, all of that's gonna add up really quickly. She also doesn't have her license, which means I would have to do all the driving, which would be really hard as I have bad back issues and driving for so long would be really painful. She just kind of laughed and said that since I have money, she assumed I would pay for a majority of her expenses. When she said this, I was shocked, because why would she assume I would pay for her expenses without even asking? I have no problem covering something like drinks or ice cream, but to assume I would pay for everything by myself except for the hotel, that was truly shocking, especially when we had previously agreed to split the hotel 50-50. Well, I told her that this trip was her idea, and she shouldn't have asked me to go if she was expecting me to pay for everything. She's now upset and complaining about how it's unfair since I can afford to pay for her, but I really just don't see it that way. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Oh my gosh, no, you are not the jerk at all. Your close friend is clearly not that close if she thought she could just like get away with you paying for everything. Like, what an entitled assumption. Like, dude, what are you doing right now? The original poster actually updated us and said that they're gonna just cut their friend off and let this friendship just fizzle out because this is the most childish thing they've ever run into. So with that in mind, I say good for the original poster. This friend clearly only saw you as a piggy bank, and that is not a real friend in the slightest. And you could do way better than that. Am I the jerk for leaving my sister-in-law's house after she tricked me to come over and only help out with her kids? Because right now I'm pissed off and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 25-year-old female and I had to put my cat down unexpectedly, and this has completely shattered me. He wasn't just a pet, he was my best friend, my emotional support, my companion through everything. I've had him since I was a teenager and I loved him more than I can even begin to explain. Making the decision to let him go was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I held him in my arms at the vet while he passed away, and I genuinely don't know how I made it home afterwards. I cried all night. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat. I took the next day off work because I couldn't even function. I was in absolute pieces. That day, my sister-in-law called and said that she didn't want me to be alone and invited me to come over. Now, I was hesitant, but I was also grateful that someone seemed to care. I thought I'd be able to sit quietly and cry a little, maybe talk about him if I needed to, and basically just exist around someone so I wasn't drowning by myself. But the moment I got there, it was clear that not being alone actually meant helping her with her kids. We immediately left to pick them up from school. Her son didn't want to get off the jungle gym, and when I just stood there, my sister-in-law got annoyed that I wasn't physically removing him, even though I could barely stand upright without crying. Back at her place, she told her son that I would help him with homework while she made dinner. I tried to gently bring up my cat once or twice because I honestly just needed someone to talk to about him, and each time she just cut me off by saying, "You're just having a moment," or would say that we didn't need to dwell on it, and I honestly just felt completely dismissed. Then her son needed help in the bathroom and she asked me to do it. I don't know if she realized, but I'd been crying on and off the entire time I was there. I hadn't been able to think straight since yesterday. I mean, I wasn't even sure why I agreed to come, and now I was being asked to play babysitter while grieving the most traumatic loss I've ever experienced. At that point, I just stood up and I left. I didn't say much. I didn't trust myself not to sob or scream. I just got in my car and I went home. Well, fast forward, and later she texted me saying I upset her kids by storming out and that she was trying to help me take my mind off things. But I don't think she ever actually saw how much pain I was in. So I really need to know if I'm the jerk, because right now I'm questioning everything. No, your sister-in-law sucks. She's a terrible human being. She literally invited you over and was like, "Oh, don't worry, I don't want you to be alone. Come and spend time with me. It's gonna be okay." And then basically pulled the rug out from underneath you and was like, "Psych, let's take care of my kids. See ya." Shutting down any attempts you would make at trying to like open up about your cat. Like, this sister-in-law sucks. She is absolutely toxic. Dismissing you when you're trying to talk about it, like, that's awful. But the icing on the cake is the fact that she's trying to be like, "Oh yeah, you stormed out and upset my kids." That for me is like the biggest evidence you need that she's not a good person. She's gonna make whatever narrative she wants just to make you look bad, especially if you don't do exactly what she wants. So no, if I was in your shoes, I would ditch out of there so fast it's not even funny, because you came over there expecting someone to care about your feelings and not be a babysitter for a very selfish sister-in-law. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that I won't drive her to work anymore after she kept making us late? Because after being written up twice now for being late to work, I'm at my breaking point and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been giving my friend, who we will call Lena, a ride to work for the past 3 months. We live a few blocks apart, work at the same place, and at the same time, so it just kind of made sense at first. At the beginning, everything was fine, but over the past month, she started running late, like really late. I text her when I leave my house, and sometimes I end up sitting outside for about 15 minutes waiting for her. A few times she even asked me to swing by a coffee shop or drop her off at a different entrance, which just completely adds time. We've also both gotten written up for being late twice now. I finally told her this week that I can't keep driving her if she's not going to be ready on time. I said that I like her and that I don't want to fall out over something small, but I need to look out for myself and my job. Well, she then got really quiet and said that she didn't think it was that big of a deal and that I was being kind of cold over something that was supposed to be a favor. And now she's barely talking to me at work, and a mutual friend told me that she feels ditched and kicked to the side. Now, I didn't mean to hurt her, but I feel like I was doing her a favor, and she was treating me like some kind of service. Because look, I'm not her Uber driver. So truly, am I the jerk for cutting off the rides after she kept making me late? Because right now, this whole situation is incredibly infuriating. No, this is so dumb. Your friend is completely at fault. Like, getting written up at work is the worst. That sticks with you, and it makes you look bad. But it's like all of that could have been avoided if for once this friend had just shown up on time. Like, the only reason you're getting written up is because of Lena. She's the one that's making this happen, not because of you. You're there on time. Like, why would you ever want to put up with that? So if Lena really wants to be like, oh wow, I feel like I've been kicked to the curb, then you can remind her that you have been written up twice because of her, and not the other way around. And that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. An entitled Karen demands a full refund on the wedding photos I took for her 5 years ago, claiming that because she got a divorce and her marriage fell apart, she should get a full refund for the wedding photos that I took. But after I told her I wouldn't refund her the $3,000 she paid 5 years ago, she's now claiming that I'm profiting off of her misery, somehow shifting the blame of her marriage falling apart on my shoulders. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female, and I am a wedding photographer with over a decade of experience. 5 years ago, I was hired by a woman who we will call Emily to photograph her wedding. At the time, she was very happy with my work, and I provided a package that included a full day shoot, an engagement session, a wedding album, and digital copies of all the edited photos. She and her then husband, who we will call Jake, left a glowing review and recommended me to several friends, and everything was great. Well, fast forward to 2 weeks ago, and I get an email from Emily. She says that she and Jake divorced last year and that she wants a refund for the wedding photos because they no longer hold any value to her. She said it's unfair that she paid so much for photos that now only serve as a painful reminder of a relationship that didn't last. Now, at first, I honestly thought it was a joke, but she was being completely serious, meaning that she's asking for a full refund, which would be about $3,000. I politely declined and explained that the service was rendered in full. The photos were delivered, and she had no complaints at the time, but she insists that I am profiting off of her misery and that a refund is the least I can do given her circumstances. I've never encountered anything like this before, and while I do feel bad that her marriage ended, I don't think it's fair for her to demand her money back now. Since I declined, she has been sending me increasingly aggressive messages and has even left a new, very negative review on my business page. Some mutual acquaintances who were also my clients have reached out to me saying that I should consider giving her at least a partial refund so that I can avoid any bad publicity. But I'm standing my ground because I believe this is absurd. But now I'm starting to wonder, am I being the jerk for refusing to give her any money back? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Oh wow, this is literally insane. This entitled Karen really wants to get all that money back, all because her marriage fell apart 5 years later? Like, I'm sorry, but you definitely do not deserve any of that money back. That $3,000 was spent half a decade ago, and just because her marriage fell apart doesn't mean that you're somehow responsible for it. Because guess what? If she doesn't like those wedding photos, then just take them down. Delete them, get rid of them, do whatever you want. But don't come back 5 years later and expect a refund. And the fact that she's trying to be like, wow, you're profiting off of my misery. It's like, what are you talking about? You were not miserable when you got married. You left a glowing review and you literally were happy with what you got. And I'm pretty sure that's probably incredibly easy to see. So the fact that she's coming back 5 years later being like, give me my money back, my marriage failed. It's like, I'm sorry, but that is not going to work. It is also crazy to me that any mutual acquaintance of any kind would even begin to entertain this crazy psycho Karen, because she is literally trying to get money back for something she spent 5 years ago, all under the guise that the original poster is somehow at fault for her marriage falling apart. So no, of course you're not the jerk. This Karen is out of her mind crazy, and anyone in their right mind, or even with a shred of common sense, would see that this lady is completely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for no longer welcoming my mother-in-law into my home after she said some mean things about my son? Because right now I feel like I'm in the wrong, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've watched my in-laws, namely my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law and my sister-in-law's husband trash talk about their entire family for years. Now, I usually just say it's not appropriate, or I walk away, or I don't even engage in the conversation. I've told my husband many times that if she ever spoke that way about our family, she will not be welcome around us anymore. Well, my mother-in-law is at our house for Thanksgiving. She lives multiple states away, and we only see her once or twice a year, although she's been discussing purchasing a home near us. My son is a teenager and he's autistic, and she is well aware of the fact that he is on the spectrum. My son was in the basement running on the treadmill, talking to himself loud enough for us to hear. My mother-in-law then said, "What is he doing?" And I replied by explaining that he's talking to himself. She asked why, and I said, "Well, it's because it makes him feel good." She then says to me, "Oh, he's weird." And this is one of those comments where she wasn't joking and she wasn't kidding around. In fact, she was being very straightforward. So I told her that she's weird, and then I walked off. I went upstairs shaking, and I told my husband what happened and that she is no longer welcome in my son's home. This is his safe space. He masks and keeps it together outside of these four walls all day, every day. And if he wants to talk to himself in his own home, he should not be subjected to judgment. Also, if she feels comfortable enough to say this to my face, then what is she saying behind his back? Now, my husband said he would talk to her, and I told him to ask her to leave tomorrow. For reference, it is dark, and she doesn't drive in the dark, so she can't leave today. He went and talked to her and came back up and said she realized what she's done is wrong and that she is sorry and that she won't do it again. He said that no one has ever called her on it before, and she didn't know if it was a problem before, and we shouldn't just cut her off and just give her another chance. Even though, as a side note, this is completely false, because every time she has said something inappropriate about other family members, I have told her straight up that it isn't okay. The fact that an adult has to be told it's not okay to call an autistic child weird is pretty wild, and I want to protect my children from her. My husband is now insisting we discuss this right now, and that I be willing to work through this and not just cut her off. But teaching her manners is not my responsibility, because my son's well-being is my responsibility. If she wants to work on herself, come back later to apologize, and demonstrate she won't say things like that again, then I will be happy to welcome her back. But until then, she is not welcome in my house. So am I the jerk for making this kind of stance? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what she said about your son is absolutely unacceptable. Even after you explained that maybe this is just something he likes to do, she still said that he's weird. And honestly, I completely agree with you. If she's saying this to your face, then what is she saying behind your back? Especially when you consider her history of talking trash to other family members. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for being like, no, I don't want her in my house, because her behavior, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. My boyfriend's mom doesn't like me, despite the fact that she's never met me and doesn't want to meet me. And now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, this is a bit complicated. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 6 months. We are extremely compatible, and I can see this relationship going the distance. I live alone currently, and I am very financially secure, and I'm happy with my life. My partner is also financially secure, but he lives with his mom, and he has lived with his mom his entire life. My boyfriend, who we will call James, could afford to move out, but due to their housing situation and his mom's mental health issues, he's continued to live there to ensure that she doesn't get moved. So James initially told me that he was going to save to buy the house they currently live in, so that way he could move out without risking his mom being relocated. And at the time, I didn't say much about this, although in my mind, I figured it would set him back a lot. James has paid everything towards the house since he was about 16 years old, and his mom just doesn't work. She's had the opportunity to have jobs, but chooses not to, and this never sat right with me. She's also put off meeting me, but I figured it would happen soon enough. However, a few weeks ago, we booked to go away together for a couple of nights, and we had an incredible time. But the night we came back, I found out that night before he went away, his mom had kicked him out. You know, the house that he pays for. And he stayed at a friend's place and didn't mention it since he did not want to ruin our trip. She kicked him out as soon as he said he was going away with me, telling him that he had to choose between me and her, and saying that he shouldn't date me since I'm diabetic, and she doesn't want her grandchildren being diabetic as well. And for reference, I've had type 1 diabetes since I was 11, and my mom is also type 2 diabetic, so this really baffled me. Now, of course, I was furious. Me having diabetes was completely out of my control, and her attack on me just made me feel like I didn't deserve love for something so stupid. Long story short, James was crying to me and saying he couldn't lose me, that she kicked him out since he was defending me. Bear in mind, James has only ever said positive things about me, and I've only been loving. I had given him flowers on multiple occasions so that he could give them to his mom when she was having health concerns, and I've done nothing but treat him with love and respect. Now, since then, him and his mom are fine, but she has said nothing about meeting me or even wants to acknowledge the relationship. And to be honest, I don't know how to feel. Now, me and his closest friends have told him that she seems to view him as a husband and is the nightmare boy mom that you see in any kind of movie, feeling like I'm stealing her son. James has realized this, and we are now saving for a house together, and he has said that he is no longer going to buy the house for his mom as he refuses to put his life on hold for her anymore. She always has something bad to say about any girl he has mentioned prior to me, but she has snapped this time, since she's realized that we are serious about a future together. They've always been extremely close, and he has spent his life feeling like he owes her since she raised him as a single parent and gave up a lot. But myself and his friends have since opened his eyes to the fact that this is your job as a parent, and that he doesn't owe her his life because of this. However, I now just don't know what to do. My family loves James, as do I, but I always envision having a good relationship with my partner's family. His grandparents adore me and can't understand the mindset of his mom, but I can't see the issue being resolved. From what I've heard, she needs some serious help for her mental health, but she never seems to stick with it. Part of me is worried that she's going to manipulate him back in, and our plans to buy together in a year or so just won't happen, and then I'd most likely have to end the relationship. James assures me this won't be the case, and that his mom wanting him to leave the only person that's ever done right by him has thankfully opened his eyes, as she should be happy for him since everyone else can see that I'm the one. So do I accept the way that his mother is and trust James to do the right thing for his future and for our future together? I can't help but feeling that his mom has drawn me almost into a battle of me versus her, which never should have been the case. I can't go over to his house for obvious reasons, so we can go out together and he can come to mine, but we won't be living together for at least another 12 months. My plan was always to buy a house, but it speeds things up with us saving together. I guess I'm just looking for advice to a really messed up situation, and if there's any hope for us to be happy together, or if I just need to leave. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, and this is literally just what I think, this is seriously so early in the relationship to be dealing with this kind of garbage. For starters, the fact that his mom is acting this way, in my opinion, is insane, because I think you've captured it entirely. She doesn't want her son to leave because she feels that you're stealing him from her. Also, the fact that you guys are looking at a house at 6 months in, like that really is crazy fast if you ask me. For reference, both of them are 24 years old, so there really is a lot of time to figure out if this is someone you want to be married to, let alone buy a house with. Like, sure, you love James, but clearly his mom is kind of crazy, and I think I understand your hesitation. Like, would you want to be dealing with that for literally the rest of your life? Because I don't know about you, but I can put up with a lot, but the fact that his mom is antagonistic towards you before even meeting you, like that in and of itself is not something that I would immediately want to deal with. So hopefully this all works out for you in some kind of way, and hopefully his mom is able to see the light of day and like accept you even at the bare minimum, because the way she's acting right now, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I overreacting for getting pissed off at my father after he threw a pie in my boyfriend's face at Thanksgiving dinner? Because right now I feel like I messed up, and at this point I don't know what to do. Okay, to start things out, my boyfriend has social anxiety. He's not very used to family reunions since his grandma was adopted from another country and he is from another state. Nevertheless, he still makes it to my family functions. My father has always been kind of different. I've thought for a while now that maybe he's on the spectrum, as he struggles with social norms and is unable to read a room. My father and I have had a lot of friction most of our lives, until recently when he seemed to really let up, as he's always tried controlling my life and becomes more upset than most parents when I am not following the path that he wishes me to be on, and I honestly feel he's not respecting my boundaries. Now, for additional context, we are at my aunt and uncle's house for Thanksgiving. My aunt is a professor at university, and her husband is a partially retired business owner. Their house is immaculate. It is one of the 6 houses on a Victorian walk of homes in their town, and it's not really a home that you want to goof around in. My oldest bonus son, we'll call him Max for the sake of the story, is 10 years old, and I found him tearing up in the kitchen as he was missing a late relative of his. We talked for a while, and after feeling better, we both got a slice of pie. And of course, we had to get those good feelings out by piling on a bunch of whipped cream. 3 of my uncles chanted to Max to keep going, and eventually we had more cream than we did pie. As I was leaving the room though, I overheard my father bet him $20 to pie his father. Now, I assumed he was joking, so I kept walking to my boyfriend. We're then with the entire extended family when I see my dad and Max approach my boyfriend from behind. They're both giggling, but my dad is holding the pie. He then grabs my boyfriend's head and slams the pie as hard as he could into his face, and he did not go light. I then snapped at my father and the whole room went silent. My uncles kept apologizing that they tried to convince convince him not to do it, but he would not listen. My dad then tried saying that Max offered him $20. Now, my dad apologized to my boyfriend, but he was smirking afterwards, so he doesn't feel it was very genuine. I genuinely think that my dad was trying to show off and got brownie points with Max and didn't think it through. In the past, when my father has done things like this, he is unable to see the other side. Well, I have to see him shortly, and my boyfriend doesn't want me to talk about it with him because he doesn't want my dad and my relationship to be damaged from it, since our relationship is really only just starting to grow. But what is his motive besides to embarrass him in front of the entire family? We have been together 3 years now, but he doesn't see most of those family members outside of holidays. On a positive note, my boyfriend scores tons of brownie points with my family. So am I overreacting for being upset that my father pied my boyfriend in front of the entire family? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're not overreacting at all. This was highly inappropriate and your dad should be ashamed of himself. Although from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like that's something he's able to do. Like seriously, what is his problem? He doesn't know your boyfriend like that. He has no idea how your boyfriend's gonna react to that. So for him to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pie him in the face just to get a laugh, like that's incredibly inconsiderate. And if I was in your shoes, I would be so pissed off. If there was some kind of like extended relationship between your boyfriend and your dad, where like they really were good friends and they liked each other and they were on super friendly, good terms or something like that, then sure, pie him in the face and get a good laugh out of it. But from the sounds of it, this really does seem like a one-sided situation where your dad did this literally at the expense of your boyfriend. So in my opinion, this is highly inappropriate. There's no reason for him to have done this, and honestly, he really should be ashamed of himself. So no, I don't think you overreacted at all, and honestly, I think if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have a conversation with him, because this is something, in my opinion, I think absolutely needs to be talked about. My boyfriend has a new coworker that I'm worried about, as he is constantly bringing her up and is always finding reasons to spend time with her, even in moments that I don't know about. And at this point, I feel very paranoid and jealous, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been dating my boyfriend for 3 years now, and this female coworker is supposedly engaged to her boyfriend. He started working a temporary job probably 2 months ago now. He talked about this one girl that is his manager a lot, about how she is trying to move him up, and how she's expressed that she likes him working there, but I didn't really think anything of it. But then one day we are drinking and hanging out with his friends, and he brings her up. He talks about how she's so cool, and they have a lot in common with a big smile on his face. Then he goes on to say that she really wants to meet me and become best friends with me. Now in my head, I thought that was a bit weird. I mean, he's only been working there for a month, and she's saying things like they've been friends for a while. That's when I started to feel a little bit weird about it, but I didn't say anything, and I started talking about something else. Later in the evening, when it's just me and him, he asked why I changed the subject when he was talking about her. I said because I felt weird how he randomly brought up his coworker while we are hanging out with friends, and the way that he was talking about her. That's when I finally asked how old she is, and he told me that she's 24, which by the way is our age. I asked to see a picture of her, and yep, she is very pretty and definitely his type. But this whole time, I pictured someone that was maybe 35 for some reason. Anyways, she is now the lead in every story he tells about work, so I asked if they're getting close. He says he doesn't really know what I mean, and then just says no. We then got into an argument about her, and I agreed to back off because he says there's nothing. Now, I will admit I wasn't being the most civil person about this, and I did accuse him of liking her, which caused the argument in the first place. Another month goes by, and he avoids saying her name now, except for the fact that they asked her to make a list of employees that she really wants to keep, you know, because this is a temporary job, and that apparently she put his name on top of her list because she really likes him. And at this point, all I can say is, well, that's really good for you, I guess. Fast forward to last night, and we were talking about how his family and I are going out for his mom's birthday for a pop-up bar after he gets off of work today. He then mentioned something about her, and how he doesn't want to let her down at work on a responsibility or something like that, and that he's gonna leave work early to make it to his mom's birthday. Then he gets a smile on his face and says that she's supposed to be there. And I'm just like, wait a second, what do you mean she's supposed to be there? He said he mentioned the bar that they're going to, and that she invited herself because it's close to her house. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of weird for a coworker to invite herself to your mom's birthday party. Then he says I'm being judgmental, and that just because I wouldn't do that doesn't make it weird. And it's like, okay, that's fair, but I just do find it weird and inappropriate. Then I start questioning how close they really are, because she clearly feels comfortable enough to invite herself to his mom's birthday. He then says that they're friendly, and I then ask him if he wants her there too. And he says to me, yes. He says he would have wanted to invite her himself, but he knew that I would freak out if he did. And I'm just like, wait a second, why do you you want this random coworker you've known for 2 months to meet your whole family. He says it's not a big deal, and he only wanted to because she lives close by. But I say to him, listen, I'm friendly to my coworkers too, but I just can't imagine myself or them inviting themselves to my mom's birthday. But once again, he says I'm being judgmental. Then, in the morning, he says that she's going with her friend and that she's just going to say hi. But I felt it was weird, and he didn't mention that before, and he acted like she was going to be joining us the night before. Anyways, I was being a jerk about it and said I wasn't going to be nice to her. Then I calmed down and apologized for being a jerk about it, but I will admit I was being paranoid and jealous about this entire thing. He then gets really mad at one point and says that he went out to eat with his coworkers one day but didn't tell me because he knew that I would get mad at him for her being there. And it really made me feel like garbage about myself while simultaneously made me worry about what else he's been keeping from me. Anyways, I feel like I'm going absolutely crazy and that I'm being the insane paranoid girlfriend, and I honestly just want to stop. I don't know what to do, honestly, because I really don't feel like I trust this girl, but I also want to stop causing these problems in my relationship all because I'm jealous. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Why is your boyfriend being so weird about this coworker? Like, from the sounds of it, it really does come off like he has some kind of like secret crush with her, especially with the fact that he feels the need to hide information from you. You've been with this guy for 3 years, and suddenly this girl comes around that he's only known for 2 months, and she is now this major point of discussion and like this one thing he always wants to talk about. So truly, I don't blame you for getting paranoid and jealous, because your boyfriend is not helping the situation at all. He's not putting you at ease, he's not saying anything to be like, oh, don't even worry about it. Instead, he's almost like bouncing it right back at you and being like, wow, why are you so judgmental? You hate her and you've never even met her. And it's like, wait a second, you do know that this is your girlfriend you're talking to, right? Like, this other lady is a coworker. You don't know her that well, and you're almost like protecting her in some kind of way. That is honestly so weird to me, and I just will never understand that kind of attitude. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would be freaked out by this as well, because the way your boyfriend is acting, in my opinion, is one giant red flag. And in my opinion, you have every right to be upset about this, especially when he's doing so little to try and calm your nerves. My entitled neighbor hits my car and then runs off, stating that he will never go through insurance to pay for the damages he did to my car, forcing me to call the cops. And I'm honestly still blown away by this situation entirely. Here's what happened. Okay, so this took place several years ago. I work in a group home for adults with special needs, and the building I work in is just a regular bungalow in a residential area. Parking isn't ideal because all we have is one narrow driveway. So if the driveway is free when you get there, then fine. But if someone is already parked there when you arrive, you end up blocking them in if you park in the driveway. Now, this is not ideal, as we often leave on errands for the residents during our shift. So when the driveway is occupied, we park on the street in front of the house. And this is perfectly legal. I live in Canada in an area that gets tons of snow in the winter. So the only rules about parking are that you cannot block a fire hydrant. And from the 15th of October to the 15th of April, you can't park on the streets from midnight to 7 o'clock in the morning. And this is also so the snowplows can do their job in the event of a storm. All other times of day are fair game, and anything in the summer is acceptable. Now, my situation took place on a sunny afternoon in late June, so it was perfectly legal for me to park there on the street. So I'm at work doing my job when there's a knock on the door. My coworker answered, and it turned out it was the guy who lives across the street. He and his wife were heading out of town and were traveling in their truck, which had a trailer hitched to the back. My car was parked on the street across from him, and as he was backing out of his driveway, he backed his trailer right into my front driver's side wheel well. So I go out to inspect the damage, and he's already mad, saying how frustrating it is that the people in our house are always parked on the street, that it makes it hard for him to get out of his driveway, and all this other garbage. Now, mind you, this is the first time he has said anything to any of us, but honestly, whatever. I didn't say anything to him, but I just looked at my car to see the damage, and it was pretty bad. In fact, it ended up costing $2,000 to repair it. So I just say, let's just exchange insurance information, and that is quite literally the only thing I've said to him up to this point. Well, when I said that, he gets very angry. He starts yelling and says he refuses to go through insurance, saying it's my fault for being parked on the street, and he'll have to pay for the damages, but only if I take my car to this guy that he knows. His wife then adds that they're doing me a favor by even telling me. They could have just driven off. Well, technically yes, but that's actually illegal, so no, you weren't doing me any favors. Again, I don't say much, and I just reiterate that I'd like to go through the insurance. Well, this guy flat out refuses, which is also incredibly illegal. So I say to him, fine, I'm just gonna call the police then. And at this point, he says he's not sticking around, and he and his wife wife actually drive off, and it was then that I absolutely called the police. The cops arrive and see that I'm parked legally and say there's no reason he shouldn't have been able to back out without hitting me. Now, here's perhaps the most annoying part of all of this. They track him down the next day and come back to let me know that they've spoken to him. It turns out he's a retired guard for the local jail, and according to the officer who did the follow-up, apparently he seems like a good guy. He's quite nice. And well, yes, I'm sure he was nice to the cop. But me, the rather small female civilian, not so much. Because this cop literally tries to convince me to not go through insurance. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on right now? He's part of your club, so he gets a free pass for being a jerk? No thank you. This guy verbally attacks me for his mistake. Then he drove away from the scene of an accident. So they need to fine him. Don't try to make this easier on him. He's a jerk. Well, I went through insurance, and my insurance covered 100% of the cost and deemed it all not my fault, which was a relief as it means my premiums were not affected. And you know what? I'm pretty sure cops have to issue a ticket when a motor vehicle collision occurs. So I'm not really sure what happens with a neighbor, but I'm guessing he received some sort of fine because I know I definitely didn't. Man, this story really pisses me off. Imagine parking your car on the street and then someone not only hits your car, but then refuses to go through insurance for it and also decides to run away. And I don't know about you, but that is definitely the definition of a hit and run. Even though there was like a conversation beforehand, these people hit your car and then they ran off. So the fact that the cops didn't do anything more serious is absolutely insane in my opinion. These are such crooked cops, like oh my god, that is so unacceptable. So truly, I'm blown away by these cops' behavior because this is not a good look in the slightest. And the fact that you had to even argue your case in the first place, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk if I told my housemate that his OCD and house rules are making our lives a living nightmare? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner and I moved into a house that we share with two other guys ages 19 and 25. Now, I'm generally tidy, and I've shared a house for many years, but the 19-year-old male has been overly strict and passive-aggressive since we moved in. When we arrived, he tried to give us just one cupboard and just one fridge shelf for both of us to use, despite the fact that there were 6 cupboards and 5 shelves. When we pushed back, he got annoyed, and eventually we took space for ourselves, but he retaliated by throwing away communal items, which might lead to extra charges for all of us. The house is spotless, yet this guy is constantly complaining. He says that we can't leave wet sponges in the sink, and they have to be in my cupboard despite the damp smell. I'm also not allowed to use the drying rack for any of the plates. I can't leave leftovers in the kitchen, but also can't have more fridge space. He also suggested storing food in my room, which I refused. He complained about a bin being half full while we were out for 2 days, and yet he refused to empty it himself. Once, he sent a long rant about a single crumb in the kitchen. His messages are long-winded and often feel targeted towards me and my partner, even though the other 25-year-old is messier than all of us. I eventually snapped and I told him that he needs to adjust his tone, but he claimed that these rules are due to his OCD, but they are excessive, and I'm tired of being hounded all the time. We've also tried to be accommodating. No personal belongings in the communal areas, no guests, and keeping everything spotless. And yet still, the constant messaging and lack of compromise is honestly exhausting. I want to say to him, hey, I've tried to be accommodating, but your constant passive aggressiveness and your strict rules are becoming ridiculous. Our home is very clean, and it's unfortunate if it doesn't meet your standards due to your OCD. However, you can't expect the rest of us to cater to your every need, especially when it comes to communal space. When you sign up for a house share, compromise is necessary. I also feel the way that you address me but not my partner or the 25-year-old male that shares the house with us is incredibly sexist and domineering, which I don't appreciate. So please, let's work towards a middle ground. I honestly want to say all this to this guy, but I don't know if I would be the jerk, because right now I really don't know what to do. Yeah, in my opinion, the second anyone's like, you have to follow the rules, my OCD says so, like at that point, I'm gonna get really angry and very frustrated. Because here's the thing, your OCD is your problem, not mine. That is something for him to figure out, and not something that you should be held to as if it's the word of God. Like seriously, the way he's acting is crazy and there's no good excuse for it. Because there are people in my life that have OCD, but they never act like this. They have ways of like keeping things in check, and they've taken the steps to like take care of themselves and make it not so much of an issue. But in my opinion, it doesn't seem like your roommate's doing that at all. Instead, he's like externalizing it and being like, wow, you have gotta follow my rules. Like, is this guy the landlord for some reason? Like, what's going on? So no, you would not be the jerk for telling this guy exactly how it is, because his behavior, in my opinion, is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for telling my sister no after she once again asked me for money? Because after funding so many projects that she's given up on, I now feel very badly about telling her no, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my younger sister and I are both in our 20s. A few years ago, I moved out, I went to school and started off well for myself. I got myself a 2-bedroom apartment, and I am basically well off. I'm now married, and my partner and I recently welcomed a baby. Because I wanted to be a stay-at-home parent, I'm not bringing in any money, and I'm staying at home 100% of the time to bond with our baby before they go to kindergarten. My partner can afford to take care of the bills without any kind of help, and if push comes to shove, will use my emergency fund. Well, this is where the issues start. My sister still lives with my mom, and before we welcomed our baby, I was basically my sister's bank. Whatever she needed, I would pay for, and she would start something new only to quit again after a while. Over the course of the years, I felt taken advantage of, but I would do it anyways. She is my sister, and I love her, and I honestly hope that the next thing would stick. I told her I couldn't do it anymore because babies are pricey, and she had my mom and dad pay for stuff. Recently, she started working at a low-paying job, and she mentioned needing money for another project yet again, but I told her that I couldn't do it, and my parents delayed paying for it. I felt bad and thought I'd give her part of my savings, till I heard she got herself a new iPhone. Now, at this point, I flipped out, because her phone was in perfectly good shape, and she certainly didn't need a $1,000 phone. She thinks that I'm being a jerk, because I had said I would give her my savings, but why should I use my own money when she's getting herself a new phone? I told her if it was that important, she would have paid for it herself, but then she went on about how she doesn't earn that much money. Part of me wants to just give it to her, because then my parents won't have to fund her, but a bigger part of me is upset, because they are enabling her, and I don't want to enable her out of my own pocket. I had to pay for my own school and juggle work and school to save money, so I really think this is unfair. Part of the issue is also that she doesn't look for me or text me unless I text her first. Now, I have addressed this, and her reasoning is always about, well, I was about to, but then months can go by, and when I text her that, suddenly a response will come in. So truly, am I the jerk for telling my sister no? Because right now, I feel really bad and I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk for saying no, but I do think you're a fool if you let this continue. Seriously, it can't be more obvious that your sister is using you for money. She literally only comes to you whenever she needs something, and she doesn't like message you or text you outside of that. And that, in my opinion, is like textbook manipulation and just her taking advantage of you. So no, you're not the jerk for telling your sister no, and in my opinion, it's time to maybe stand up for yourself, because if you're not careful, this behavior absolutely will continue. Am I the jerk for not giving my dad the birthday gift that he asked for? Because right now, my parents are in a big argument over it, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So last week was my dad's birthday, and I usually like to get him something nice. My parents immigrated to Western Europe when I was a small child so that they could provide us with a better life, even though they earn minimum wage. 5 years ago, I graduated from the best engineering university in the country, so I've been fortunate to have a good financial situation. I enjoy spoiling them as a way to thank them for their support on their birthdays and at Christmas. For example, last year I knew my mom wanted to go on a trip with her friends, but didn't have the money to do it, so I covered the cost of her flight and hotel. This year, I asked my dad what he wanted for his birthday, and being a simple man, he said he wanted a new vape. After thinking it over, I decided against buying him the vape. I've tried to help him quit several times, but have accepted that it's unlikely to happen. However, I don't feel right about actively supporting his addictions. So instead, I got him a new tablet because I knew that he was still using his old one, which had a broken screen. And the tablet ended up being a lot more expensive than the vape. Well, when I gave him the gift, he seemed really agitated. He took me aside and expressed his gratitude, but questioned why I chose such an expensive item instead of the cheaper one that he wanted. He acknowledged that the tablet was nice, but mentions that he needs to buy a new vape this year, and he anticipates a big fight with my mom if he buys the one he likes. He then asked me to return the tablet and exchange it for the vape. Well, I told him that I was sorry, but I just couldn't do it. I can't be the one paying for the toxic chemicals that are slowly harming you. You can ask for anything else, but I can't provide that. We then had a small argument over it, and then we went back inside to celebrate. Well, today, my younger sister, who still lives at home, messaged me to say that mom and dad are fighting over dad's new vape. She then asked me why I was being so stubborn and didn't just get it for him. I explained my reasons to her, but she thought that I was being unreasonable since he was going to get the vape anyways. Unfortunately, it seems they will be fighting about this for a couple of weeks. I've been reflecting on my decision for a while, and I'm now starting to have doubts. I want him to be healthy, but I can't help but wonder if my choice was selfish. He still has the the vape, and it seems I'm the only one who benefited because I managed to keep my conscience clear. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, maybe I'm wrong here, but I really don't think you're the jerk here because I completely understand your reasoning. You don't like the fact that he's vaping, and you feel like this is a horrible addiction and it's ruining his life. So you decided, okay, I'm just gonna get you a tablet instead, and that's that. So from that perspective, I understand why you did it, and I don't think you're in the wrong for choosing to do that. You don't want to support that addiction. And sure, he got the vape that he wanted either way, but it didn't come out of your pocket. And that, in my opinion, is a big deal. Because sure, he can try and guilt trip you and be like, oh, I'm gonna get it anyways, and it's gonna cause a big argument. You need to buy this for me. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. You still have the choice of whether you want to buy it or not, and I'm not responsible for if you do buy it. Like, that kind of reasoning from your dad is so twisted, it's not even funny. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here, because it really seems like your intentions were in the right place. Am I the jerk for telling tourists not to park near my house after they parked their SUV literally a foot away from my house? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents' house is located near Roman historical ruins and is considered a tourist visiting location. It's a long aqueduct, and part of it runs like 30 feet away from my house. Well, this family of tourists with their kids decided they wanted to sightsee these ruins, and many tourists do every year as well. So honestly, so far so good. The thing is, they parked their SUV like a foot away from my parents' house, and this is on the road, by the way. I was gardening at the time, and I heard them all talking going out of the vehicle, so I went out to them and I asked if they came out to visit our family, to which the father answered that no, they just want to see the ruins. Well, I told him if that's the case, then this isn't a parking spot, to which he answered it's only going to take half a minute and then they'll leave, even though as a side note, it wasn't half a minute. He then tried to say that it's not bothering anyone if it's on the road, so I told him that a road isn't a parking place. He then said that he understands, and then turned away to his business to show that he was ignoring me. I told him that it's clear he doesn't understand, but whatever, and then I returned home. So right now, I really feel like a Karen, but it's also the fact that most tourists park outside our village entirely, or they go far enough into the ruins as to not be parked where people live. But he decided that my fence was good to park near. It honestly doesn't really bother anyone, because it's actually very boring here as it is, but it's the fact that he didn't try to understand my perspective at all that really truly annoyed me. He could have asked if there's a parking spot around, or if there's anywhere they can stand around that isn't a living area. I would have answered him, and in retrospect even told him that he can stay off the road away from my house, but he still stuck to his own agenda. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I don't know the specifics of like where you live, or like the laws when it comes to parking on a public road, but from my perspective, as someone who does live in a country where yes, you typically can park on the side of the road, even if it is in front of somebody else's house, like in my opinion, I really do think that you are the jerk here. Sure, they could have parked anywhere else, but guess what? Just because they parked in front of your house doesn't mean that they're like taking a shot at you. And you're trying to argue, wow, you shouldn't park in front of my house. But the counter argument is literally, oh, you mean the public road? The road that is literally available to anybody to use and do whatever they want on? You mean that road? Like seriously, this is not a private driveway. And from the sounds of it, it's not like they're parking on your front yard. So seriously, like what's the problem here? They were not bothering you. They weren't even on your property. So for you to be like, wow, you need to move, you're being inconsiderate. It's like, no, they're actually not doing anything wrong. They're parking off to the side of a public road. And unless there's some kind of restriction that like blocks people from parking in that area, then in my opinion, these people are well within their right to park wherever they want. My parents absolutely hate my boyfriend simply because he has a 3-year-old son, and they have now chosen to say that they will never support him if we ever get married. And at this point, I am so hurt that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been dating for almost a year now. I am extremely happy with him, and he treats me so well. It's been an absolute dream being with him. He's the perfect man, and I can't see my life without him. And our relationship has been amazing. A few weeks into us talking, I had a feeling that we would be official, so I told my parents about him and also told them that he has a 3-year-old son. Well, they were initially stumped and told me that they aren't the biggest fans, but they were overall kind about it and said that it's my life so I can choose what I want to do. I listened to them and I kept it in my mind, but I decided to continue our relationship. After they realized that I wasn't ending things with him, they became much more cold and incredibly rude to me. They told me they don't understand why I told them if they were going to say they don't approve and I just decided to continue the relationship. They said they'll never give us their blessing to marry, they'll never have us at events together, and they're mourning the loss of their relationship with their daughter and all this other stuff. They have also told me that I'm straining their marriage. They've sacrificed so much for me just to throw it in their face, and now they're even making rude comments by calling me stepmommy in a condescending tone. Initially, I did try my best to have them meet and open a conversation for us to talk about it. I would be open and tell them where I'm going with him, if I'm staying at his place, or where I got my flowers from. For reference, he's gotten me flowers every month since we've started dating. But eventually, they told me they don't want to hear about it or see him. So I stopped telling them where I'm going completely. I spend much less time at home because of the tension, silent treatment, or rude behavior. It feels like a lose-lose telling them everything and trying to find a solution or just leaving them alone. I currently live with them, and I'm saving up to move out and be fully financially independent. In fact, they have already thrown finances in my face, mentioning how they pay my insurance and I live under their roof, which I completely agree. So the best thing to do would be to move out and at least get rid of one argument they might have. There's constant tension in the house with them, and whenever they seem okay, it's because I just go straight to work and home. Every other month we seem to argue about all of this, but I've honestly become so tired. The arguments are full of harsh remarks, as well as condescending comments about how I make stupid decisions, how I'm ruining the family, and they will never accept us and never attempt to. They've also said when our family doesn't like someone, they will just completely outcast them, and that's just how it is. So it's my decision to date him or be a part of the family. They then go on a list of all the family members they avoid because they don't like them or their partner. My mom also mentions her personal issues from the past, from when she grew up with having divorced parents, stating that this will not allow her to accept my relationship or be involved in my life. My parents have an us versus them mentality with the rest of my family and credit all of their issues to that. When I have spoken up about how that may not be the healthiest thing and how it makes no sense to love me unconditionally and then do the same to me, I'm just told that's the way our family works. I have tried many times to have a conversation, and I have been outspoken about how they don't talk to me to actually discuss things, but rather they just want to yell at me. I've said I don't feel comfortable at home, considered, or seen as a person. All of that to then lead to more accusing, yelling, and bullying. At this point, I know I haven't treated them the best recently because I have built so much resentment for them as well, and I would rather not, but at the same time, I can't try to be happy in the house knowing their kindness and love feels conditional. What should I do? Okay, let me just say first and foremost, your parents are absolutely awful. The way they're treating you is not normal, and the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, this is how family acts. If we don't like them, we cut them off. Like, that is not how it works at all. I can understand if there's some kind of like actual issue going on, or like some reoccurring bad behavior that would make someone like cut off a family member, but for your parents to be like, wow, we don't like their partner, we're never talking to them ever again. Like, that really is so extreme, it's not even funny. And that is not the way a normal family acts. So for your parents to be like, oh, your partner has a kid, we automatically hate him and we will never accept him. Like, that doesn't say anything about you or your partner, but instead it says a lot about them. Because I really am convinced they will do this to anybody that you try to date. Anyone you try to bring into your family, they will get the same type of treatment. These people just don't sound like they can ever be happy. And in my opinion, it's not your job to figure that out for them. So truly, I hope this works out for you, and I also hope you're able to move out and move on with your life, because your parents sound like a nightmare to live with. My entitled Karen of a neighbor is constantly complaining about where I park my car, claiming that I'm violating a bunch of city ordinances by parking my car legally on the street. So I decided to get some revenge by quite literally turning the tables and getting her in trouble for parking in front of a fire hydrant. Here's what happened. Okay, so a couple of months ago, I had a run-in with the self-appointed Homeowners Association enforcer of my neighborhood, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Linda. For context, I don't live in an HOA community, but Linda likes to pretend that we do. She's the kind of person who leaves passive-aggressive notes on the car, or knocks on the door to complain about lawn height, and even calls the city for violations that don't actually exist. The issue started because I parked my car on the street in front of my house, which is, by the way, perfectly legal, and I've been doing it for years without any complaints. But apparently, Linda decided that my car was an eyesore, and one day I found a note tucked under my windshield. The note said, "This is not a parking lot. Park in your driveway like a respectful neighbor. Don't make me involve the city." Now, the note annoyed me, but I shrugged it off and I kept parking where I always do. But apparently, that wasn't good enough for Linda, because the next time she confronted me in person, she said to me, "I've told you before, parking on the street is inconsiderate. You have a driveway and you need to use it." Well, I looked at her and I said, "It is legal to park here and I'm not blocking anything." Linda looked at me and said, "It doesn't matter. It's ugly and makes the neighborhood look bad. Park in your driveway or I will report you." So it was decided right then and there. Fine. If she really wants me to park in my driveway, then I will park in my driveway. But I will follow every single rule to the letter. You see, my driveway is small. If I can park my car in it, it it blocks the sidewalk. Technically, it's against city ordinances to obstruct the sidewalks. So the next day, I pulled my car right into my driveway perfectly centered. And guess what? It completely blocked the sidewalk. Well, it didn't take long for Linda to notice, as she marched up to my door, red-faced and furious. She said to me, "You can't block the sidewalk. That is illegal." I said to her, "Oh, I thought you wanted me to park in my driveway." Linda said to me, "Well, not like that. You need to park properly." But I responded by saying there's no other way to park in my driveway without blocking the sidewalk. So I guess I'll have to go back to parking on the street then. When I said this, her face was absolutely priceless. She sputtered for a moment before finally stomping off. Now, thinking that was the end of it, I parked my car back on the street, but no, Linda wasn't done yet, because she actually called the city on me. A week later, a city inspector came by and he checked out the situation at hand. He saw that my car was legally parked on the street and told me that I was doing nothing wrong. However, he did mention that Linda had made several complaints about code violations in the neighborhood, and they were getting tired of her nonsense. So after that, I didn't hear from Linda for a while. Well, that is until last week, when she started parking her car on the street in front of my house. So I did what any good neighbor would do. I called the city and I reported it. It turns out her car was just slightly too close to the fire hydrant, resulting in her getting a ticket. So truly, this revenge felt so sweet, because the way she treated me was so uncalled for. Yeah, this lady was completely out of line. Like seriously, why would you act like that towards your neighbor? The car wasn't bothering anybody. You were literally just trying to park your car in a place that it will fit. The driveway's out of the question because it blocks part of the sidewalk. So it's like, okay lady, what do you want? Because you can't possibly report me for everything. Like that's just insane. But through it all, I'm so glad that you reported her for parking in front of a fire hydrant, because that is some beautiful karma working its magic in the best way possible. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not wanting to see my nephew after his blatantly rude behavior on Thanksgiving? Because right now, my family's going through a stressful moment, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, my partner unexpectedly lost a sibling 2 weeks ago and has been across the country taking care of post-life affairs since the death. His cause of death is undetermined, and it has been very stressful, and the grief is real. My partner spent 3 days driving back home across the country with no heat, breaking down the day before Thanksgiving, and having to repair the vehicle en route. Hence, it was a very stressful trip. His nephew, who lives in town, had passively asked if we were having Thanksgiving dinner. Now, we weren't going to do it because of the stress and recent emotional overwhelming situation, and because I have an autoimmune disorder, and I am on a very restricted diet that doesn't include most Thanksgiving Day treats. But we decided to celebrate it on Friday when my partner got home, because it appeared that my nephew really wanted to. My nephew and his girlfriend stated that Friday would be our choice rather than Saturday. I spent days running around to 5 different stores, purchasing all the food, as well as cooking and cleaning it all by myself. We had turkey, homemade stuffing, homemade bread, sweet potato pie, mashed potatoes, roasted carrots, and potatoes, including squash, salad, cookies. I mean, you name it, we had it. My nephew and his girlfriend were aware that dinner would be served at 4:00 p.m. Well, at 3 o'clock, I received a text message saying that my nephew's girlfriend couldn't make it because she got thrown extra work that day, even though it was remote and wasn't time dependent. And I'm not even sure if I believe that was true. Well, my nephew arrived at 4:01 p.m. and he literally brought a leftover lamb chop from his girlfriend's family's Thanksgiving dinner the day before, which is really ironic if you think about it. I didn't have the best timing, so dinner was ready a little bit early, and at that point, half of it was cold. We loaded our plates and we ate. My nephew dominated the conversation the entire time, talking about himself. He never once asked how either of us were doing, how my partner's trip was, nor asked about his dead uncle. As a side note, my nephew is an only child with no cousins and only has 2 uncles, but now he only has 1. Hence, the family is very small. At one point, I just stopped the one-sided conversation and I point blank asked him, "Do you have any questions about your uncle?" He then asked a few questions and we gave him some items that he inherited. He was then putting his shoes on and preparing to leave within an hour and 15 minutes after arriving. I had offered some leftovers and a portion of banana bread that I made, but he grabbed the entire loaf of bread and shoved it in his bag, along with the majority of the Thanksgiving leftovers. Now, I made a few direct comments, but they were just laughed off, and he was out the door in under 2 hours, and I don't even remember him saying thank you. I spent more time planning, prepping, and baking the banana bread alone than he spent with us, and neither of us even wanted to celebrate this year in the first place. This is not the first time Thanksgiving has fallen completely on me me without any appreciation or acknowledgement. I used to enjoy Thanksgiving, but not recently. This is also not the first time my nephew has acted self-centered. My partner is so overwhelmed at the moment that I just don't think it's a good idea that I say anything to him about being upset and angry, because in all actuality, I'm livid. However, I'm struggling to comprehend whether this is my personal issue or if I have a valid reason to be upset. Right now, I don't want to see my nephew for a while, and I'm seriously contemplating canceling Christmas, because right now I'm incredibly offended and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your nephew is a self-centered piece of garbage. This guy literally only did this so that he could get some free food. Like, that's the only reason he's like, wait, are you guys having dinner too? He didn't care that his uncle passed away or anything like that. He didn't care that his only living uncle had to drive across the country to take care of this stressful moment. This guy only wanted some free food out of you two, and that honestly is mind-blowing, especially considering the fact that he literally had Thanksgiving dinner the day before. Like, this guy rolled up with some lamb chops that were half eaten. Like, seriously, what's his problem? So no, I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting to see him again, because the way your nephew acted, in my opinion, is incredibly rude. Am I the jerk for unknowingly ordering food for my boyfriend that he's allergic to, and as a result, effectively ruining our road trip? Because right now, he is refusing to talk to me, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I are on a road trip right now, and things have gone completely wrong. I feel awful, but I'm also really confused about whether I'm actually to blame. Earlier today, after hours of driving, we stopped at McDonald's for dinner. My boyfriend was really irritable, and he gets this way when he's tired, and he didn't even want to look at the menu. He just sighed and said, "Can you please handle this? Get me something normal." Now, I didn't want to make things worse, so I quickly ordered him a crispy chicken sandwich meal, and I figured that it was a safe choice. We ate in the car on the way to our hotel, and about halfway through his sandwich, he suddenly asked me, "Did this bun have sesame seeds on it?" And honestly, I did not even think about that in the first place. But sure enough, the bun did. He then got really upset and said that he's allergic to sesame seeds, which is something I had no idea about, because he has never mentioned it to me in the year that we've been dating. He said his throat felt a bit itchy, but took an antihistamine and said he would be fine. I apologized repeatedly, and I offered to stop somewhere to get him different food, but he just stared out the window and ignored me the rest of the drive to the hotel. And the silence was unbearable, and I kept feeling worse and worse. When we got to the hotel, he barely spoke to me, but then he said that he needed some air, and then he left the room. That was over 3 hours ago, and he is still not back. I've called him multiple times, but he's still not picking up, and now I'm sitting here spiraling. I get that I made a mistake, but how was I supposed to know about an allergy that he never told me about? He made me order for him, and he didn't give me any instructions, so it feels unfair to put all the blame on me. At the same time, I can't shake the feeling that I should have been more careful and checked the bun or asked about his allergies just to be safe. So am I the jerk in this situation, or is he by overreacting and disappearing for hours and not answering my calls? I'm honestly freaking out right now, and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here, your boyfriend's an idiot. If he really has some kind of allergy to sesame seeds, and he knew you two were eating at McDonald's, you know, a place notorious for putting sesame seeds on their buns, then he absolutely should have spoken up and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm allergic to sesame seeds, so please try to get accommodations for that before you get my food." And it sounds like this is food that can like really affect his breathing, so like this guy was just asking to have some kind of allergic reaction, and that literally, in my opinion, is not your fault. Because seriously, how could you have possibly have known that this would have caused him problems? He's never said anything about this, and you had no idea this was a thing. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation, because the way your boyfriend acted, in my opinion, is incredibly irresponsible. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to move his newly planted trees that are literally all over my property? Because right now he's pissed off, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So a few months ago, my neighbor approached us and said he wanted to plant a row of fir trees between our yards. We expressed some concern, specifically in the area closer to our house where it is dark, which is also a place that we have trouble growing grass, and we wanted to plant something smaller in our bed there. These trees will grow quite large and wide, and they are not what we want for our yard. But then our neighbor said they would be planted on his property, and we just said whatever. It's his property and he wasn't asking for money, so fine, go for it. We were working from home when the landscapers were planting the trees, and we briefly went out to look at the progress and noticed that the holes were large, but it was hard to tell where the tree would end up, and we just didn't protest. However, once they were fully planted, we noticed that several of the trees appeared to encroach on our property, specifically several in the areas that we had concerns about. We notified our neighbor about our concerns right away, and he was open to moving some of the trees and wanted to know which ones and to where. Since we didn't know exactly where the property line was, we said we wanted to get a survey to be better informed. Well, he asked that we we do this as soon as possible because it was late autumn, and he wanted to be able to move the trees before it got too cold. We called a surveyor immediately, but due to their schedule, it was a month before we had the final survey report, which cost us a total of $3,000. When we got it, the survey showed that out of the 12 new trees, 6 were on our property, 4 of them are right on the line, and 1 is very close with branches substantially growing onto our property, basically meaning that only 1 is fully on his land. When we sent him the plot plan and asked him to remove all 11 trees planted on or growing onto our property, understandably, he got really upset. He was pissed off by our request and the timing of it. He would say stuff like, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? Now I'm gonna have to pay twice. You guys are terrible people. I'm just gonna put up a fence anyways. So truly, with all things considered, am I the jerk for asking him to move his trees fully onto his property line, especially in the cases where the trunks might be right on the line? We are considering offering to pay half the removal cost, but really at this point, we don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk for telling this guy to move his stuff. This guy's an idiot for not getting this surveyed before he did it. You mean to tell me that he planted trees and didn't do anything to make sure that it's not on your property? Because this guy completely missed the mark. Nearly all the trees except for like 1 is like in a place that covers your property. That really is the dumbest decision he could have possibly made. So any kind of aggression he has towards you, he really should be directing at himself. Because if he really wanted to do this right the first time, he would have gotten a surveyor to make sure that he did it right. Am I the jerk for not saving the house my grandma is trying to sell off, also that my brother can live in it? Because after being promised that I would own this house, it seems like my entire family is going back on their word, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and my mom, my grandma, and my great-grandpa all live on the same property. My mom and my grandma share a house, and my great-grandpa had his own next door. He sadly passed away 2 years ago, and the house went to my grandma. Now, even before my great-grandpa dies, we talked that I would one day buy the house and half the property off my grandma. We initially expected that would be when I'm around 30 years old, but you can't really predict the death of a loved one that precisely. I had recently moved to a different city to be with my boyfriend, but he also agreed that we would move back once we were ready to settle down. While my grandma was grieving and contemplating if she wants to sell, my mom suggested that my little brother, who we will call Luke, as well as his girlfriend, who we will call Emma, move in temporarily so they can have some privacy and in turn keep up with the chores so the house stays in good condition. Well, this year, my grandma said that she wants to sell the house next year and she needs the money for her own renovation. Yesterday, I visited my family and grandma, my mom, and I set a date to discuss how we will proceed. But that's when my brother interrupted, saying that he should be there as well, as he also has an interest in the house. Now, this was the first I've ever heard of this, but apparently my mom knew about this because she said our main concern should be keeping the house in the family and that him and I can discuss at a later time who will live in it and to buy my grandma out. Well, I told them that I intended to let Luke and Emma live there for free for the next few years, as I still want to focus on my career before settling down, but I would not invest in something I don't intend to make my own one day. Property is expensive, and my boyfriend and I want to start investing now before there are any major financial responsibilities involved. Well, my brother argued that him and Emma live there for some time now, and that it's unfair to expect them to just leave once I decide I want to move back. But I told him that the alternative is to either pay the whole sum next year, or our grandma will sell it to some stranger. Now, my brother and mom both called me a jerk for being selfish, saying I would get the money back if he wanted to buy it from me, but for me, it's also about the cuts in my lifestyle. It would mean tightening our budget to pay off the loan, and effectively losing money due to inflation. But it's true that I would be the only one able to pay my grandma, so the house isn't sold to strangers. I don't want it to not stay in the family either, but I feel they are putting an unfair expectation on me, and they're guilt-tripping me by calling me a jerk. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because this clearly is supposed to go to you. The fact that your brother and his girlfriend are being like, oh, well, we've lived here longer. You can't expect us just to leave, do you? It's like, yes, if I own the house, absolutely. I'll give you time to move out, but I'm absolutely moving in there someday. So I really think the alternatives you've presented are completely reasonable in my opinion, because for them to be like, oh, wow, you're selfish, in my opinion, is incredibly rude in and of itself. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my brother borrow my car for his emergency, even though he's in a tight spot with his car breaking down? Because after I said no, my brother freaked out on me, and now the entire family is turning against me, leaving me unsure what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a younger brother who we will call Ethan for the sake of the story, who is a bit irresponsible when it comes to finances and planning ahead. A few days ago, he called me in a panic because his car broke down, and he's telling me that he has an important job interview tomorrow, but he has no way to get there without his car. Now, here's the thing. I just bought a new car. I've been saving up for it for a long time, and I'm really careful about keeping it in good condition. And honestly, I don't feel comfortable letting anyone borrow it, especially Ethan. He's borrowed cars before and hasn't always been responsible with them. He once returned a rental car with a big dent in it and didn't tell them about it, which ended up costing him a lot to fix. And after that, I've been a little hesitant about lending him anything valuable. I told him I could help in other ways, like offering to drive him to his interview or helping him find a rental car, but he flat out refused to all of my other offers. He is now really upset, saying that I'm being selfish and not being there for him when he needs me the most. He's accusing me of not understanding how important the interview is, but honestly, I just don't feel comfortable risking damage to my new car, especially since it's my only means of transportation right now. Well, my parents are now calling me to tell me that I'm being too harsh and that I should be more understanding of the situation. I feel I've made my point clear, but I'm starting to second guess myself because they seem to think that I'm being unreasonable. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. You literally offered to drive Ethan to the interview yourself. Like, what's the problem here? Isn't that problem solved? You even said, hey, I'll help you find a rental car. So it makes me wonder, okay, why do you really want this new car? Because I think it's not about him actually going to a job interview. Instead, I think he wants to use it for personal reasons and that's it. So for him to call you selfish after you said, hey, I'll drive you to your interview, I will literally help you find a rental car or anything else, like that is super sketchy and really disrespectful. So no, you're not the jerk, because in my opinion, Ethan clearly has ulterior motives. My ex is accusing me of cheating after I moved on, and now she wants to contact my girlfriend and let her know exactly what she thinks is happening. Because right now, I feel like I messed up in a big way, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for the past 2 years, there was a girl that I was dating. We were officially in university. I started working in February earlier this year, and around then, we had a fight. At the time, there was a lot going on personally, and I did not respond to her. We basically stopped talking for weeks that eventually turned into months, and mentally, I accepted that this was the end of our relationship and assumed we had broken up without having a conversation with her and ending it formally. I moved on mentally, and I went about my life as though we had, assuming that it was implied and spelt out from the no contact. We spoke here and there, but it would not be considered as reaching out to each other. Now, there was someone else that I met around the same time in February, and although there was nothing at the time, it developed much later in the year, and I pursued a relationship with her. When she would ask about my previous girlfriend, I would always brush it off and not even give her a name because I think subconsciously I didn't want to tell her. I'm going to tell her later today, but I'm not sure what the reaction will be because I really see a future with this person. Yesterday, I had to visit my ex to return something that she asked for, and that was the first time that we saw each other and properly spoke in months. It's also when I verbalized that we've been over in my head for a long time. However, when I said that, she flipped out and took it as the fact that this new person was the reason why we didn't speak, even though the whole time I had moved on. And that's how I pursued this relationship with my current girlfriend. We have been very public and I've been very vocal about the future that I want to have with her. Well, today she sent me a screenshot saying that my ex had requested to follow her. I suspect that my ex wants to tell her everything that had happened, and in our conversation yesterday, she said that she was cheated on even though that wasn't the case at all. So truly, how do I address the situation? Am I valid in feeling that she is being unreasonable? What should I do? Okay, honestly, this is so immature because this should have been handled way better. You don't just ghost someone and be like, okay, I guess we're broken up. I'm gonna get a new girlfriend, because this is literally how they're gonna react. Like, I'm not saying your girlfriend's actions were like reasonable in any way, but the fact that you moved on without like properly saying, hey, I'm breaking up with you, in my opinion, is crazy. Like, that really is not okay. The better thing to do would be like, I don't know, call her and message her or do something just to say, hey, we're breaking up and I don't want to be with you. Because sure, it was probably nice for you to move on without any kind of effort or having that weird conversation that you know is looming in the background. But guess what? Your ex-girlfriend is now like, oh wow, you cheated on me. Even though in your head, you moved on. Like, there are some major communication issues in this story. It's honestly just so disturbing. So truly, I hope you find a miracle in some kind of way of working this out, because what you've gotten yourself into, in my opinion, absolutely could have been avoided. I caught my entitled ex-girlfriend cheating on me after we've been together for 11 years. And now that we're broken up, she's demanding that I fund her new lifestyle with her new boyfriend by paying for all of her bills, as well as moving out of my own house so that she and her new boyfriend can get back on their feet. But once I say no to her and tell her that I'm not gonna do that, things escalate in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so I found out that that my girlfriend of 11 years was cheating on me with an unemployed dude of all people. I'm not rich, but I provide her a good lifestyle, and I paid for most of her bills. I also provided a nice place for her to live. I paid for her nails and hair to be done regularly, and we had dates every single weekend with couple vacations every year. Now, she got used to that lifestyle and wanted to keep living it despite cheating with a broke dude. She didn't admit to the cheating, but I caught on to it, and once it was clear I was done with her, the entitlement really started to show. She said because I had family in the area and she didn't, I should be the one to move out, but I should also continue paying the bills to give her and the new guy a chance to get on their feet. She also insisted on keeping my dogs and told me I could only see my own dogs if I asked the new guy, but since they didn't have any money, I needed to continue paying for food and veterinarian bills. Well, instead of those weird demands, I kicked her out and I kept my dogs. Now, at that point, she was angry and still felt entitled to my income. After I kicked her out of my place, she claimed she was forced to quit her job because I forced her to relocate, and then she tried to sue me for lost wages, which did not work out in her favor. I mean, you would think that she'd stop at this point, but she didn't. She contacted my work and threatened to sue them, stating that their employee's action was costing her everything, and tried to insist that they settle outside of court with her for $100,000, which, by the way, she didn't even make that much money. But instead, my work filed harassment charges against her. Now, you would think she would stop at that point, but she still didn't. She started messaging every family member of mine that she could find, told them I cost her everything out of spite just because she moved on with someone else, and that the least they could do is send her money to help her get a place and pay rent. When that didn't work, she went online and begged for people to send money to her Cash App so that she can get the help she needs with a place to live. And she even claimed that this was a domestic violence situation. Now, I don't understand how she doesn't understand that any financial support I gave her would end if she cheated on me. We were not married and we don't have any kids. I've supported her for years, so I owe her nothing. So I really don't owe it to her to help her out with her new relationship in getting them on their feet and establishing themselves, which surprisingly somehow comes as a shock to her, despite the fact that she literally ruined everything. Oh man, this entitled girlfriend is insane if she thought she could seriously get away with this. So let me get this straight. She had a boyfriend who was clearly very well off, and she decided to cheat on him with someone who was broke, while also still expecting the original poster to like fund her life, as well as move out of his house and give up his dogs. Like, what are you talking about? That is crazy talk. She was with you for 11 years too. Like, you had that level of crazy right next to you for that long, and you probably had no idea that she would do something like that. So truly, I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I'm also so glad that you got away from her, because she clearly thought she could get away with this in some kind of way. And that, in my opinion, is so incredibly dumb. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My sister's husband basically stole a TV during a Black Friday sale, and right now I'm realizing I'm the only one in the family who has a problem with this. So at this point, I'm wondering if I'm overreacting because this situation has seriously upset me. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened during Black Friday, and I'm honestly still processing it. My sister and her husband, who we will call Mike, went to Walmart for their Black Friday sale. According to them, it was absolute chaos. There were hundreds of people everywhere. There were barely any workers, and it was a total mess. Mike managed to grab one of the doorbuster deals, a huge 65-inch TV that was marked down from $899 to $399. Apparently, the checkout lines were so insane that people just started walking out, like literally just pushing their carts through without paying because there weren't enough workers at the registers and security couldn't handle it. And you know what? My sister and Mike joined them. They walked out with a $400 TV because apparently everybody else was doing it, and according to them, the store should have been better prepared. The part that really bothers me is that they were bragging about it at a family dinner yesterday, and this is right in front of their kids and my kids. They were laughing about their amazing deal like it was some funny story about outsmarting the system. I pulled my sister aside and told her this was basically stealing, and it sets a terrible example for the kids. She then got defensive, saying I'm being dramatic, and that big stores expect this kind of loss during sales, and that it is not really stealing because the store couldn't handle their own sale properly. Mike then jumped in saying I need to chill out, and that I'm probably jealous I didn't get any of their supposed deals. I'm honestly disgusted by the whole thing. Later, my kids were asking me if it's okay to not pay for stuff when stores are really busy, which just proves my point about what message this sends. My sister hasn't talked to me ever since I called her out, and my parents are saying that I should apologize for making drama, and that this is somehow none of my business, this, but I really feel like someone needs to say something. So seriously, am I overreacting here? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, you are not overreacting. I hate people who steal, and this is honestly like straight up thievery. And I know for a fact if my sibling was bragging about stealing a TV from like some kind of store, I would be losing my mind on them. I would be like, wait a second, why would you do that? Because you proved it yourself. This sets a horrible precedent for the other kids in the room. And the fact that your sister was trying to justify this as if the store was ready for this kind of loss, like that is crazy to me, and there is no good excuse for that. So no, you're definitely not overreacting, because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. My manager complains that I need to start clocking out on time, despite the fact that the person who's supposed to relieve my night shift keeps showing up late. So now I've decided to maliciously comply, showing my manager once and for all how stupid their rules are. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work overnights at a well-known gym franchise that I will not name. My typical shift is from 10 o'clock p.m. until 6 o'clock in the morning. Usually there is always supposed to be 2 people on the night shift together, but lately my coworkers have been calling off a lot, causing me to be in the gym alone all night. My coworker, let's call her Sam, comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning when I get off. Well, here's the problem. Sam doesn't usually come in on time, and she is usually always 10 to 15 minutes late. So onto the problem at hand. Because Sam comes in late, I tend to have to stay clocked in past 6 o'clock in the morning. Additionally, since I'm usually alone at night, I can't get any important tasks done until Sam comes in. My boss noticed my time cards and got very upset that I haven't been clocking out right at 6 o'clock in the morning. He made me feel awful, despite constantly being on the blunt end of all his scheduling messes. So I told him, okay, I'll start leaving exactly at 6 o'clock. So that's what I've been doing. I've been leaving the gym entirely unattended until somebody gets there, and most of the time, no one does for a while. So now members are confused, and my manager doesn't know what to do, considering he's the one who scolded me for staying past 6 o'clock. He thought that I would just clock out and stay off the clock, but seriously, why would I do that? I was not going to take the fall for someone else consistently being late. The best part about it is that he won't fire me or write me up, because technically speaking, this is exactly what he wanted. Yeah, I can't stand managers who act like this, who complain about a problem that they are literally causing. Like seriously, why on earth is Sam still working there? If she can't show up on time and do her job, then she's gotta go and you've gotta find somebody who will. Like seriously, what a massive waste of time and energy. So it also just doesn't make sense to me that the original poster is catching any heat for this, because they're not the problem. They're willing to stay until Sam decides to like go in for work. But here your boss is being like, wow, I can't believe you stayed past 6. You better stop that right now and clock out when you're supposed to. So I really love the way the original poster handled this, because this really did shove it right back in their manager's face. An entitled client claims that my company is moving too fast when we're doing our job, stating that we were being unsafe of all the people around us and that we needed to slow down. So we decided to maliciously comply, resulting in us taking nearly 3 weeks on a job that could have taken 4 days. And I've honestly never felt better about putting somebody in their place. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened about 2 years ago. I work in construction, but more specifically, I cut concrete. A lot of people aren't familiar with my job, but all you really need to know is that I don't pour any concrete. I use big diesel and hydraulic powered saws to cut and remove it. Now, I work for a relatively small company of about 15 people, and we are the company to use for concrete cutting and removal in our area. I was the first employee hired at this company, and my bosses are amazing. They've been in this industry for about 25 to 30 years respectively. We will call them Brad and Cody for the sake of the story. They know what they're doing, and they still get out and work in the field and will outwork any of our employees. We were awarded a no-bid contract at a very large facility to cut and remove a very large section of their outdoor slab because it had cracked. Now, this was routine for us. We could do it in our sleep, but it was still a large project. The reason we were given the contract but not held to a number was because they wanted it done right and fast, and they knew that we were the guys to do this even though we aren't always the cheapest. The customer also requested us to bring extra equipment and specialized saws just in case, and trust me, this will be important later on. The day comes that we're supposed to start, and they wanted us on site at 6:30 in the morning for a safety meeting. Brad and Cody went out while I stayed back to get my crews ready for the day, all before heading out to meet them. When I arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning, they were still standing by their trucks just talking. I asked them how the safety meeting went, and they said that no one had shown up yet. Well, finally, they got there at around 9 o'clock in the morning and didn't even acknowledge that they were late. We met the guy who was in charge of the project, and for the sake of the story, we'll call him John. John said during the safety meeting that there would always be a few people around from his company to watch us while we worked. We figured it was weird, but honestly, no big deal. We ran a routine safety meeting after, and it was now time to work. Well, we got about a third of the project completed in one day. Now, the entire time we were working, there were no less than 25 people standing around watching us work. We kept joking with them to just set up bleachers, as it would be easier to watch that way. They made us call it quits at about 4:00 p.m. so that they could go home. Right about this time, we started to figure there was something up with these guys. They didn't care that we didn't get started until late, and they wanted us to end early, yet a big part of us being there was to get it done fast. Either way, we figured we would still be able to get it done in about 3 days and make record time for a project of this size, all while making a fair amount of money for ourselves. The next morning, as we were getting ready to head out for the day, Brad received an email. The email said,
"While we can tell that your company are master operators with their machines, we feel as if they are operating in an unsafe manner by running multiple machines at once and request that they slow down to maintain safe working conditions. They also didn't try to make sure our supervisors felt that they were safe throughout the day."
Now, when Brad read this, he was pissed. We were called in to get things done fast, and not once had we done a single thing that could be considered unsafe. When we got to the job that day for the safety meeting, Brad changed from saying, "Oh, screw these guys, they don't know anything about what we're doing," all the way over to say, "Okay, we're going too fast, then we will slow it right down for them." At the safety meeting, John, who's the same guy who sent the email, he looked at us and said,
"Okay, everyone knows what we're doing, so let's get it done."
He tried to end the safety meeting with that, but that's when my boss spoke up and said to him, "Hold on, since no one's man enough to tell us in person and just want to hide behind their emails, let's get this straight. We're going too fast and we're unsafe for you." When Brad said this, John became visibly uncomfortable. He then stammered out,
"Well, there was a lot of people standing around and watching you yesterday, and I just felt that someone would get hurt if they decided to get closer to watch."
Now, I had set up safety cones with red danger tape strung between it and told no one to cross. We had taken proper safety precautions. If they didn't feel comfortable to have that many people watch, then maybe don't have that many people standing there watching and literally doing nothing. All Brad said to them was, "Okay, we will be real slow, and if someone crosses our line, we shut the site down for an hour for another safety meeting." And it was at this point we decided to cue our malicious compliance. As we started our day, something to note about our saws, our tractors, and other heavy equipment is that we have the ability to turn up the idle, or in other words, we can turn up or down the speed of the motors. So instead of everything moving normally and how it should, which is relatively fast, everything is moving at a turtle speed. Brad told us all that if we ever speed up our machines, then he would kick us off the job. Even Cody, his business partner. I was cutting with our saw, while Cody was in the excavator to remove the pieces that I cut, with Brad in the skid steer to haul the pieces to the dump truck. I would cut the concrete into 6 foot by 6 foot pieces, which would normally take me about 20 to 30 minutes, but it was taking upwards of about 3 hours for one piece. Then, after I would cut it, Cody in the excavator would turn his machine on, slowly turn and stop, and then, as excruciatingly slow as possible, move the stuff that he needs to move, and then shut down his machine, all without idling up. Then, Brad would start his machine and repeat the same process to load into the dump truck. So basically, you get the point. It was painfully slow. After the first piece was ready to be pulled out and Cody started the process, John, who was just sitting on the sideline pale-faced, crossed over my line to ask if we were really serious, at which point Brad screamed for us to shut down and we all stepped away for an hour for a safety meeting. John crossed the line 3 times in the first day and 8 times total throughout the project, while his employees never once crossed the danger line. So basically, John was effectively the only person that he had to worry about in his email about getting too close and being in danger. John just kept saying to us,
"No way you guys are serious. What happened to what you were doing yesterday? You were so much more efficient."
Brad then just said, "I have it in writing that you felt unsafe, so the remainder of this project will be operating at a safe pace." Well, this ended up taking about 3 weeks to finish at that horrible speed instead of the 3 to 4 days at full speed. Now, the best part about all of this, the head of the facility came out to see what was taking us so long, and we showed him the email, and he himself agreed with what we were doing. He told us that he hates John, and that he's insufferable to work around. He said the success of this project is directly tied to John's yearly bonus. He asked how much we were charging them, and we told him that per piece of equipment and truck, as well as the saw that we use, we're billing them by the hour, and that John had requested that we have nearly double the amount of equipment than we actually needed or used. The facility head just laughed and said, "Fantastic. I will make sure that you're paid in full. Don't go easy on us with the bill." So that's how we maliciously complied our way into charging about $200,000 for a job that should have realistically only been worth about $45,000. I even got a solid $20,000 $2,000 bonus because Brad and Cody are fantastic bosses, and they knew that we were making a killing on that job. Wow, that's a good example of maybe you should just keep your mouth shut if you don't know what's actually going on, because John in this story absolutely just put his foot in his mouth. For starters, literally nobody on the site was doing anything dangerous, so the fact that John would be like, wow, you guys are moving a little fast for me, maybe slow things down and be more careful. And it's like, dude, you literally don't know what you're talking about, and you yourself are only gonna get in the way. So truly, I find this story fantastic because sometimes this is what it takes, because people like John make working environments absolutely a nightmare to deal with. Am I the jerk for not allowing my husband's friend to bring her dog to our Thanksgiving dinner? Because right now she is freaked out and claimed that she will no longer be showing up. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband asked if we could host Thanksgiving this year. We usually don't host because our apartment is small and we don't really have any guest parking, but he was really excited. We used to host events at our old place and it was a lot of fun. Most of our guests are friends, and everyone agreed to bring a dish. One of his friends, let's call her Chelsea, volunteered to make the turkey. On Thanksgiving Day, one of his friends asked if she could bring her cat, and I said no pets because, as I mentioned, we live in a small apartment, and this is a dinner gathering. I didn't think it would be comfortable for anyone, including the pets. My husband suggested that we also let Chelsea know about our no pet policy, and I agreed with him. I was a bit hesitant though, because Chelsea is one of those people who likes to bring her dog everywhere, and if she can't bring the dog, then she arranges for a dog sitter. Now, in the past, she has caused some tension when her dog wasn't allowed at other events. I told my husband to text her to check if she was planning on bringing her dog, as I didn't think that it would be a good idea. I also offered to talk to her myself because my husband isn't as comfortable with confrontations. He texted her and she called afterwards. He then put her on speakerphone, and I could tell that she was upset from the tone in her voice. Chelsea told me that she always brings her dog everywhere, and I pointed out that wasn't entirely true, since we've been to several events where she did not bring the dog, which is true by the way. She then asked why we hadn't mentioned this before the invitation, and I explained that I didn't think it was necessary to mention it, since I assumed it was understood that bringing pets to a dinner without asking isn't typical, especially when we don't have any pets ourselves. At this point, she got upset and said to us, well, I guess you'll have Thanksgiving without a turkey then. When she said this, I was surprised, because it felt like she was trying to pressure me into letting her bring the dog, implying that she wouldn't come without it. I don't like being pressured, especially in my own home, so I calmly responded that I was sorry she felt that way. She then immediately said, no, I feel sorry for you, since you won't have a turkey. And then she hung up on us. So am I the jerk for saying no to her bringing her dog? I feel like I was setting a reasonable boundary, but now I'm second guessing myself and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk here. Chelsea is being so overdramatic. You live in a small apartment. It's not like you have all this room for people to come around, especially her dog. And by the way, this is not going to be an all-day event. Just leave the dog at home and then come yourself. Like, it really isn't that hard. And the fact that she's like, okay, well, enjoy Thanksgiving without a turkey then, to me that shows exactly how immature she really is. And in my opinion, I think you dodged a train with this lady. So no, you're not the jerk for setting this boundary, because in my opinion, this seriously is not that big of a deal. My girlfriend blocked every girl on my Instagram while I was in the shower, and now I'm honestly so confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I started dating in February and moved in together in October. I don't really have anything worth keeping secret from her, so I'm comfortable leaving my phone around knowing that she knows my password. I noticed this morning that my Instagram follower count was off, and noticed that every female was unfollowed or even blocked. Now these were all co-workers and friends I made in the army, as well as some family friends. Well, I confronted her and she started crying and blaming it on trust issues. I have never cheated in any relationship, and I do my best to maintain mutual trust. I've been thinking all day while she's at work, and I feel like she broke my trust permanently. She also doesn't let me play video games with my male friends anymore because she apparently feels left out. So right now, I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Oh boy, this is definitely a weird one. For starters, what your girlfriend is doing is unbelievably toxic. The women that you're following on Instagram are not people you're gonna cheat on her with. They are literally co-workers and family friends and like friends you made in the army. You know, people you're not gonna have any kind of relationship with. So that first and foremost is already pretty weird, but it's the fact that she's not allowing you to play video games with your guy friends, all because she feels left out. Like, that for me is a massive red flag that I cannot ignore for a second, because from the sounds of it, it really seems like she's trying to isolate you from everybody. And I really think she's just lying when she's like, oh, I feel left out of your gaming sessions. It's like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Because let's flip the script for a second. If she had some activity with her girlfriends and you suddenly stepped in and said, wait, you can't do that, I feel left out. Or if you even went on her Instagram account and blocked and unfollowed every guy that she's following, like that literally would be so crazy it's not even funny. So yeah, the way your girlfriend's acting is really weird, and in my opinion, you definitely do not deserve that in the slightest. My toxic younger brother uses his time as the best man at our other brother's wedding to make fun of me and mock me in front of the entire family. And after dealing with this for my entire life, I now feel like I'm at my breaking point because this has gone on far too long. Here's what happened. Okay, so my youngest brother, let's call him Phil, got married today, and the ceremony was absolutely beautiful. His wife was stunning and everything was great and well done. His best man was our other brother, who I will call Jack for the sake of the story. My wife and I aren't part of the wedding party, which is fair because we didn't ask them to be in ours 5 years ago. After the ceremony, we did the pictures and a cocktail hour, and it was nice to talk to some out-of-town family and old family friends. And Jack and I were talking about the day that they all had, and then everyone was called inside for the reception. We go in and have dinner, and my wife and I were starting to kind of get tired, but I told her I really wanted to hear Jack's best man speech, so we agreed to wait. And honestly, I wish that we didn't. Jack goes up, introduces himself, and starts his speech. He says, well, about 34 years ago, mom and dad got married and decided to try for kids, and they started with the prototype, my older brother. And at this point, I should have known where this was going. He continued by saying, they realized that, hey, they could do better than that, so they got it right the second time. Me, Mr. Perfect. And I was. Our grandfather would call me Crusher because I would beat up my older brother as a toddler. We were always opposites and didn't really get along a whole lot. So mom and dad decided they needed someone to help them out, and so they had this guy. Now, when he came around, I was like, yeah, he seems alright. So growing up, we terrorized my older brother. Good times. Now, Jack continued his speech, but at this point, I was kind of checked out. I was and still am really upset about it because I've always been the butt of all the jokes in my family. My brothers, my cousins, even my parents. I'm the difficult one. I'm very emotional and empathetic, which is a blessing and a curse. I'm overweight and they're both athletes. And Phil actually works for an NHL team. I enjoy tabletop games, reading, and just being a nerd, whereas they like sports and outdoors activities. I think you basically get the idea. Well, I get up and my wife goes to the bathroom before we decide to just straight up leave. Jack then finds me and says to me, are you good? I meant to say at the beginning of my speech that I apologize because my older brother is probably gonna get upset. But I just look at him and I say, you're good, but I would have appreciated a heads up that that's what you were gonna do. He then looks at me and just goes, if I did that, I wouldn't have gotten the genuine reaction, and then just walked away. And at that point, I just met up with my wife and we left. So I asked her, am I being crazy right now? Was his best man speech really just a ton of shots at me? She said to me, well, it seems like he was trying to be funny, but not everything landed. And yes, you were most definitely the butt of the joke. After that, I drove home pretty much in silence. I'm tired of always being the butt of all the family jokes. We're supposed to have lunch with extended family tomorrow, and the only reason I'm going is because I only see these family members maybe once a year. I don't want to see Jack or really anyone else from my immediate family. So do I have a right to be upset? Or am I being overly sensitive in this moment? What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to the story they just shared. Here's what they had to say. Okay, before I talk about the lunch that we had, I'll share what happened to the bridal party as it becomes relevant why Phil didn't come. The bridal party was hit by a pickup truck right outside the venue. The truck was going 55 and the girls were stopped. Both vehicles were totaled, but they were adamant to go on with the ceremony and get checked out later. So Phil took his wife to the hospital today, and thankfully there were no major injuries. But now on to the lunch. My wife sat down with the families and we were all chatting. At one point, my uncle goes, Phil's speech was really sweet. I couldn't have given that without crying. And my mom says, well, yeah, he had something prepared because he practiced it with me and he changed it after the wreck. Jack then piped up and said, hey, I had a good speech too. But then my dad chimes in and says, yeah, it was a good speech, but it was all about your older brother. Now at that point, I just got angry. I then said to them, I thought it was weird that it was so focused on someone who wasn't even involved in the wedding. Jack and my dad then got quiet and then just continued their conversations with the people next to them. I avoided eye contact with Jack, and then we left after 15 minutes. My wife and I then went home, and we just proceeded to relax since we're finally getting a break from our students. And for reference, we teach upper elementary school. Jack then tried to call me once, but I just let it ring. He didn't even leave me a voicemail. Then about an hour later, my grandma called me asking how lunch was, and she could tell that I was upset in my voice. When she asked what's wrong, I told her about being upset with Jack, and she said to me, well, I don't think your brother father meant it. And I just said, well then why did he bring it up? This is all the time. And then everyone wonders why my wife and I don't come around as often, or why we leave early at events. I'm tired of it. She was really calm and just said to me, well, your brother can't give a speech and he thinks he's funny, but he can't make jokes without insulting someone. Have you told him and your parents about how you feel? I said yes, and that it hasn't changed for years. She then just says, well, y'all are just gonna have to work this out. I told her that I don't want to talk to him right now, and she goes on to say that she knows and that she understands. So that's where we're at the moment, because this entire situation is incredibly frustrating. Wow, Jack is a massive piece of garbage. This guy was making fun of you at your brother's wedding. Like literally, the best man speech is not supposed to be about you. You're not the one getting married. Like this guy's an idiot. I also cannot stand the fact that this all just goes unchecked by anybody else. Like if people really feel this way about Jack and his stupid jokes, then why is nobody coming to your defense? Are they that afraid of Jack's reaction? Because in my opinion, they would rather sacrifice your happiness just so they can keep Jack off of their back. Like I really think that's what's going on right now, because Jack clearly needs some kind of target to like bully and make fun of. And in my opinion, I think the rest of the family is just relieved that it's not them. So they say nothing and let this kind of garbage happen left and right. So personally, I would be like, yeah, you're all in on it. You're all terrible people for letting this happen. And the fact that nobody is calling this guy out on his BS, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my father out financially and potentially leaving him homeless in the future? Because right now I feel really guilty and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so growing up, my parents got divorced when I was 13 years old. It was a tough time for everybody, but I almost exclusively lived with my mom, with some visits from my father throughout the years. And I did this until I was 18 and moved to go to university. My father offered to pay some of the residence fees at the university, but my tuition was already covered by a scholarship that I took. During my second year at university, I found out that he had paid for about 3 months worth of fees and then just let the debt accumulate. So I got a letter of reprimand saying that I would be thrown out of residence if I didn't have the money within a month. Now, I don't believe that I was entitled to have my residence paid for at all. However, I was entitled to know when my father stopped paying so that I could plan or pick up extra work to afford a place to stay. I had asked my mom to bail me out, but I paid her back with interest when I started working after university. Fast forward some years, and as soon as I got a job, my father started asking for money from me. I didn't mind because the amounts weren't large, and I was prepared to sacrifice the money. But over the 5 years, the amount of money that I have sacrificed was most of mine and my fiance's savings. So I cut my father off, saying that I was not willing to give him any more money. He subsequently moved in with friends of his because he has not got a job, and from what I've heard, he has developed a problem with drinking. Well, these friends called me directly and said that I need to let my father move in with me because he is not their family and they are sick of having him around. They then went on to say that if I don't take him in, then they will leave him on the street. And this has caused me a lot of anxiety and pain because on one hand, I don't believe I'm responsible for my father's choices, but on the other, he never mistreated me growing up, besides some lies about university fees and other times that I just won't get into. I feel sick to my stomach letting somebody live on the streets. I am an only child, and my father has broken the trust of basically his entire family. For reference, I was not the only person he took a large sum of money from, so I am effectively his last resort, but I am still sticking to my decision of not letting him move in, especially for the sanity and strength of mine and my fiance's relationship, and for my own well-being. So am I the jerk for not helping my father out? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, it is not your job to bail this guy out. The fact that he doesn't have a job and that he's not working honestly falls on his shoulders and nobody else. And it's also really suspicious to me that the friends called you directly and they're like, you've got to pick up your father or else he's going to be homeless, because that just doesn't sound completely truthful. It sounds like the dad set them up to say that, and they're only delivering that message on his behalf as some kind of guilt-tripping tactic because he knows that you'll shut him down the second he asks you. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here, because everything your father's going through right now is quite literally his own fault. Am I the jerk for canceling a trip all because my friend stopped replying and has literally just ghosted me the second I told him what our plans were? Because right now I'm really confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I have this friend who we will call Brad. I've known him since middle school, but didn't really talk with one another. After college, we met and dated for a few months, but then I broke up with him due to the both of us not being ready for a relationship, because at the time I just got out of a 5-year relationship with him just just getting out of a 10-year relationship. And at this point, I don't really initiate the text messaging anymore. Usually, he'll hit me up after every few months or every few years, and then we'll start talking for a few months. Well, recently, he just got over a horrible relationship, and he was on the deep end. And me, being someone who's been on that thin line before, reached out to him to try and help him out. And it was then that I offered to go on a trip to Oregon and see my dad. And he was very excited about it at first. I offered this, by the way, because he was having so much trouble at home, and his mind was very cloudy. So basically, I just wanted to help him out. Well, I wanted to buy the tickets to fly to him and get a rental car, which would basically be from Florida to Arizona. So I messaged him if he still wanted to go, and he said, of course. I then messaged him with stuff that we could do and places to stop along the way, and he just didn't reply. And at the time, that was honestly not a big deal. He has been doing that really often lately, so I didn't think much of it. Well, I waited a day, and then I texted him the dates and how long we'll be gone for, but he didn't reply. So I held off on buying the tickets, and I waited another day, and I sent him a message if he was okay, and I still didn't get a reply. Like I said before, he has been kind of distant. Even when I had trouble in my life and tried to talk to him, he was just never there. And he definitely doesn't owe me anything, and he definitely doesn't have to be just because I was. I honestly just felt bad for him. Anyways, I waited 4 days, and later that night, I sent him a text saying that I was holding off on buying the tickets and that I might just go alone since I have to take this trip. The trip is coming up so soon. It's in about a month, and if I was going to drive from Arizona up California to Oregon, I needed about a month of planning. And I also texted him that I was confused on what happened. Now, did I bombard him with texting every day? Sometimes I just messaged him by saying, hey, I hope you're doing okay, because he's told me some dark and really concerning stuff, and I told him that I care for him and that he is my friend. So when I see him changing his Facebook to all black and disabling all of his other accounts, it's honestly really concerning to me. So am I the jerk for trying too hard in this situation? But also, why is he messaging me every couple of months to rekindle our friendship? Like, why did he agree to go on this trip in the first place? He was the one who asked me for the dates and the plans, and when I did that, he just didn't reply. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because the way this guy's leading you on, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Like, this is not a good friend. This is someone who's coming back to you and basically trying to like rekindle something, even though he knows it's not gonna work out. And the fact that he ghosted you after you were like, hey, let's look at days in which we can travel, like that is really weird, and that's just so inappropriate. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my brother pay off his debt after he tried to publicly shame me for not giving him well over $3,000? Because right now, I'm incredibly annoyed, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 19-year-old female, and I started a new job recently where I saved up quite a bit of money over the past year. My family was proud of me, but my older brother, who's 25 years old, immediately started making comments by saying stuff like, you're finally rolling in cash, so I guess you can help your family now. He has always been bad with money, mostly from wasting it on gambling and unnecessary purchases. Well, last week, he asked me for $3,000 to help pay off his credit card debt. He said he needed it to avoid getting into more trouble, but I told him no, because I've seen how he handles money, and I don't trust him to use it wisely. Well, he got mad and called me selfish, saying I was being unfair since I don't have any big expenses right now. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, he went on social media and posted a rant about how I was hoarding money while my own family struggled. He even called me a bad sister for refusing to help out. And now some family members are saying that I should just lend him the money to avoid more drama. But I do not think that I should have to pay for his mistakes. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk for not bailing your brother out. This guy's an idiot for acting like, oh yeah, you've got some money now. Looks like I can get a piece of that. Now you can get me out of credit card debt. It's like, no, that's not happening. What are you talking about? Just because you saved up a lot of money doesn't mean it's meant for the family all of a sudden. Just because this guy's a moron when it comes to saving his own money doesn't mean that you now have to bail him out. So no, you're not the jerk, because the things this guy was demanding, in my opinion, are completely out of line. My entitled boss demands that I follow every procedure that we have at our company, claiming that I can't make any mistakes. So I decide to maliciously comply, showing him once and for all how stupid this policy is. Here's what happened. So I work at a company that prides itself on having a detailed, overly complicated policy manual for everything. We've got rules for rules, basically. My manager, let's call him Dave, is the kind of guy who loves micromanaging. He would constantly hover over our shoulders, pointing out every tiny mistake we made, saying to us, if it's in the manual, you must follow it. Well, one day, Dave sent me an urgent email asking me to finish a big project before the end of the day. Normally, I do it my usual way, efficiently efficiently and with a bit of common sense. But Dave insisted that I strictly adhere to the manual since, according to him, it was a high visibility project and he did not want any mistakes. Well, Dave, this is something that you definitely should not have asked from me. I pulled out the manual and went full compliance mode. For starters, every procedure, no matter how small, was followed to the letter. Normally, I'd skip pointless steps, like writing a detailed log for every 10-minute task, but not this time. I logged everything. Did I start a document or save the file, or even change the font size? Well, if I did, guess what? I'm gonna log it. Also, it's super important that I request for approvals. The manual says certain steps need managerial sign-off, so I emailed Dave at least 5 times throughout the day for approvals. I would say something like, "Hey Dave, just confirming font size 12 is acceptable, right? Please reply so I can continue." And I did this about literally everything. Also, breaks were strictly enforced. Policy states that we get 2 15-minute breaks, as well as a 1-hour lunch. Normally, I'd work through a bit of lunch to get things done, but not today. At 12 o'clock sharp, I dropped everything and I left my desk. I also spent 15 minutes at exactly 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock just resting. Also, every department had to be involved. The manual said I needed sign-offs from IT, human resources, and marketing for certain sections, even though they had nothing to do with the project. I looped them in with formal requests, dragging out this timeline completely. By the end of the day, the project wasn't finished. I spent so much time complying with the manual that I didn't even get halfway through it. Well, as you can probably guess, Dave was furious, and he asked me why it wasn't done. So I calmly explained that I followed every single policy and procedure in the manual, just like he instructed me to do. I even showed him the email chain proving that he had approved my steps. Well, after I did that, Dave stopped breathing down my neck and started letting me work how I wanted. So honestly, I think he learned his lesson, because sometimes the best way to fix a broken system is to show exactly how broken it truly is. This is brilliant because honestly, I hate people who micromanage. If I've got a job that I'm doing and I know how to do this job, I don't need anybody breathing down my neck to make sure I get it done, because that's literally just going to hinder my process and it's going to make this harder for me overall. So the fact that you whipped out the manual and did this to the letter of the law and said, "Hey, I'm going to follow every single step, even if it's stupid and something mundane. Guess what? I'm still going to do it." Like, that is absolutely brilliant and so funny to me, because Dave deserved this. Dave seems like one of those people who loves pointing out people's mistakes, and so being a manager over people where he gets to point things out all the time is probably something he loves to do every single day. So getting back at him by maliciously complying to everything that he said, in my opinion, was absolutely necessary. Am I the jerk for calling my mom out in front of the entire family after she tried to claim that she was the reason that I got into college? Because right now my entire family's upset with me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 16-year-old female, and I graduated early, and recently I started college. The reason I'm already in college is that my mother pulled me out of public school when she found out that I was gay. She enrolled me in a homeschool program, which allowed me to work at my own pace. And if you're not familiar with it, the program I was a part of is an absolute joke. From the moment I got pulled out of school, I dedicated myself to getting into college. And this was mostly just to get me out of the house. I taught myself almost all of my education. The only official classes I've taken are Algebra 1, English 1, Civics, and Honor Science. This means I had a lot of gaps to fill. Now, just to make this clear, my mother didn't help me study. Her exact words were to say, "You have a laptop. You have the answers right at your fingertips." So I got a job the day I turned 15 years old, and I've been working for about a year now. I managed to save $9,000 to set myself up for college. I applied to college by myself, passed all the entrance exams by myself, and paid for my first semester by myself. And my dad has also given me $10,000, which I have not even touched. I decided that I'm going to save it in case my money or my scholarships are not enough. Well, recently, my mother has been telling our family members about how I got into college and how she's been helping me, claiming that what she did for me was the best thing ever. And this drives me crazy because none of this is true. But at our family reunion, I had had enough and I corrected her. I told everyone that the only thing she did for me was drive me to work when my dad couldn't and take me to one entrance exam. Well, when I said this, my mom got super mad at me, saying she paid for my homeschooling. However, I paid for the homeschooling program with my savings, and my mom paid me back over 3 months. My mom also claimed that since the savings account I used was in her name, and there was $300 left when I got access to it, that means that she helped me just as much as my dad. To clarify, my dad doesn't make more money than my mom. In fact, he makes less, but makes better financial decisions, like not buying a brand new car or a house right after the divorce, which my mom absolutely did, by the way. I don't agree that my mom has helped me at all, but some family members think that I was the jerk for calling her out at the family reunion. My dad and brother think that I'm right for not letting her twist the situation just to make herself look like a great parent. So am I the jerk for calling out my mom in front of the entire family? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. This absolutely needed to be corrected because what your mom is spewing right now is straight garbage. She didn't help you study. She literally threw you to the wolves and said, here you go, have fun. Like, that is crazy and that is so unacceptable. It's also so awful that she would try to use you to look good in front of her family. Like, she's really trying to sit there and be like, wow, look what I did for my daughter. She did all of this because of me. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't even help her study. You quite literally said, okay, here's a laptop, find out the answers, you can do it. And the fact that she pulled you out of school just because you're gay, like, that is so awful. I can't believe she would do that to you. So to me, it really makes sense why you want to get out of her house, because your mom sounds like an awful person. An entitled Karen walks into our store at the last possible second, as she then walks down every single aisle of our grocery store, taking as much time as possible in shopping for her items. And despite the fact that she was shopping after hours when we were literally closed, she still refused to hurry up, demanding that we keep the store open until she is finished shopping. And I've truly never been more annoyed by anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was working at a grocery store, and this was some years ago. I was working the late closing shift from 4 p.m. till 11 o'clock p.m., and our store closes at 11. At around 10:50 p.m., a lady with a typical Karen haircut, as well as some purple hair color, walks into the store and grabs a shopping cart, and walks into the opposite end of the store with the meat fridges and the freezers. I start the closing routine, and I don't think much of it. The time hits 11, and I finish my routines, and this lady is still standing there in the exact same spot. So I go to her to tell her the store is closed, but before I even get a single word in, she says to me, I know the store is closed. I know you want to go home. I've worked in a store before, you know. And I tried responding back to her, but she said to me, listen, I've worked in a store before. You always let the customer finish shopping. And then she started rambling incomprehensibly. The time then hits 5 past 11, and she finally starts moving, but she was swerving between freezers and not grabbing anything. On the way to the cash register, she suddenly takes a sharp right turn to look at something. And the entire time she is rambling to me about something. But at this point, I was spacing out and just following her to make sure that she leaves the store. Finally, at 11:12, she makes it to the register and my colleague scans her items. Then she realizes she forgot something and is about to go grab it. But before she does, I say to her, oh, don't worry, I'll grab it for you. So I ran off to grab it before she would. I then return with the item and my colleague scans it through. She then asked us about cigarettes. And for reference, the store uses an electronic safe that you pay for a ticket you scan, and then the item drops like a vending machine. While tapping the screen in front of the register, my colleague explains that whatever cigarettes she wanted, we were completely out of. After that, she lets out a scoff and proceeds to look for her wallet in her purse. After rummaging for what felt like forever, she finds the wallet, pays and packs her stuff in a bag, and heads out for the exit. I follow her so I can lock the door, but she notices some National Day flower bouquets by the exit and is about to stop to look at them when she probably noticed me rolling my eyes, and then she finally left. The time at this point was around 11:23 p.m., and my colleague still needed to finish counting the till. Now, the entire time from when I first walked up to the lady and until she left, she was rambling about stores and how she worked in one, and how she definitely knows how it is, and all this other stuff. But truly, lady, if you know, then please leave and just go home, because your presence is truly a nuisance. When I worked in retail, I literally could not stand when people would do this. They walk in at the last second, and then they have the audacity to stay there for minutes after closing. Like, truly, I get it. Sometimes you can't get to the store until later, but for anybody to come in right when you're closing and then stay past the closing time, like, that is so annoying and so unacceptable. Because seriously, the original poster and the rest of their colleagues most likely worked a long day dealing with idiotic customers like this lady. So the fact that she tried to say, oh, I know how it is, I used to work in stores, but then also chooses to take her time and not hurry up, in my opinion, is incredibly frustrating and very rude. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. For the first time ever, the cops in my mall actually did something amazing, as I watched them take down a shoplifter in a way that I will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to be a manager for a fairly large CD and DVD store back in 2010, and this store was right next to an anchor store. And for those who don't know, the anchor stores are the very large stores at the ends of the mall. Our store took up about the same amount of space of about 3 to 4 small stores in the mall and had an entirely glass front. front, minus 2 large open doors that had the slide-down grates for closing. The glass front gave us a perfect view of what was going on in the mall when it was slow, which was the case on this particular Sunday evening about 30 minutes before closing. I generally set myself up at the front of the store, sorting new product on a cart and looking outward into the mall. That way I can greet anybody who might come inside. My employees were finishing up closing duties, so we could close the registers and get out the door as fast as possible. Now, this particular mall had the usual security guards, who tended to be the guys who fell into 2 different categories. Category A were the young guys who really wanted to be cops, but probably failed because of psychological evaluations and were a little bit too excited to catch shoplifters. And Category B were the older guys, who probably used to be cops and just wanted everything to be safe for everyone in the mall. And on weekends, we had a few cops that patrolled the mall. As employees, we did occasionally need to call security, and we had good relationships with the security teams, as well as the loss prevention team at the anchor store right next to us. We also used to think that the cops that pulled mall patrol detail were probably just bad at their jobs. But oh, how silly we were to think that. As I was sorting CDs and hoping for a fast exit that night, all of a sudden, I saw a woman with a stroller racing out of the anchor store just as fast as she could. But quickly in pursuit was one of the cops, who we will call Bob for the sake of the story, who is one of our favorite loss prevention guys from this anchor store. Before I could even yell back for my employees to see the show, this incident really popped off in a way that I didn't expect. This cop actually made a flying tackle on the woman. He landed on her back and slid with her almost 10 feet across the nicely waxed tiles, all while the stroller went flying, and he had both her hands behind her back and handcuffed before the 2 of them slid to a stop. Now, before anybody worries, the stroller crashed and spilled all of its contents with not a baby in sight, but instead it was probably a few $1,000s worth of prom dresses and jewelry, which also slid across the nicely waxed tiles. Bob skidded to a stop by the stroller and began collecting the items, and apparently sorting through the items to determine which ones were owned by the anchor store and which were probably the property of other stores that she had been stealing from, just so they could be returned. Eventually, one of the young mall security guards strolled up from the other direction. He saluted me and said, "It's okay, we've got it taken care of." And I'm honestly still impressed because for the first time, the cops in our mall actually did something that was quite amazing. Yeah, that's really cool when you see someone do their job and they do it well. I know I've worked at malls before, and trust me, some of these security people absolutely suck at their job. They're there just for a paycheck and they don't actually care if anything goes wrong. But these guys were not that. Like, these guys were the John Wicks of like mall cops. And I really think that it's cool you got to see that in action, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have a lot more confidence in these guys actually getting things done. My wife refuses to take her food allergy seriously, resulting in us constantly going to the hospital from having a negative reaction. But after this last incident, I finally had my breaking point, and I decided that I'm gonna kick my wife out of the house for a few days so that she can finally get it through her head that this is serious and that this is something that I need her to step up on. Here's what happened. Okay, so last night, my wife came home from work and pulled out a container of something I wasn't familiar with, and then she sat down to eat it. She works at a grocery store, so I normally don't think too much about it, but when I got a whiff of it, it smelled like crab salad. Now, for context, my wife has a pretty intense allergy to green and red onions, but she is fine with yellow and white onions. Now, in America, we do have ingredients listed on the package, which is required by law. However, companies are allowed to be vague with certain ingredients, and onions are one of those. Normally, if I spot onions listed as an ingredient, then it is a hard pass for me. I don't even chance it. But my wife, however, doesn't do this. Now, back to last night. I got up and asked to see the container, which was half gone at this point, and I read the ingredients. And wouldn't you know it, onions were listed plain as day towards the top of the ingredients. I asked her if she bothered to read the ingredients, and she said that she did, but she assumed that they were the safe ones. At this point, I grabbed the EpiPen from her purse, and I kept it close by. Now, I was upset at her because I used to work in a kitchen, and I know well that green onions and seafood are almost inseparable in those salads. But I kept a calm demeanor and I just watched her. Well, within a few minutes, she started having a reaction. At first, I wanted to give her the EpiPen because she had eaten so much of it, but she refused and said she would just take some Benadryl and lie down on the couch. Eventually, though, she needed to be given the EpiPen, and I drove her to the hospital. And it's important to keep in mind, this is taking place at midnight and I have work at 8 o'clock in the morning. We get to the ER and they admit her. They tell me that she needs to stay overnight for observation because of how severe her reaction is. And I then talk to my wife about it. We know the staff here pretty well, and I know she is in good hands, so I check with her to see if she would be okay if I went home to get some sleep before work. Now, she said it would be totally fine. However, as I was leaving, I chose to call her mom and ask if my wife could spend the next couple of days at her house. You see, I was furious with her at this moment because I felt like I'm the only one who takes the allergies seriously, and I am not the only one who will literally die if I eat the wrong onions. And this isn't the first time that she's been careless and ended up needing to go to the hospital because she had a reaction. There have been many times before where she ate first and asked questions later, and it frustrates me to no end that she doesn't take it seriously enough to take just a few moments to read the ingredients and just avoid onions that she cannot plainly identify. So, since I wasn't getting through to her, and the hospital visits seemed to be ignored as well, I decided that making her stay at my mother's for a few days might send the message. I got home and packed her a suitcase for the next few days, and when I got the call that she was being discharged at 7 this morning, I picked her up and I drove her to her mom's house. I told her as I was dropping her off that this wasn't permanent, but I needed a couple days to cool down, and she needed to be monitored anyways since she just got out of the hospital. So this was the best course of action. Well, when I did this, she cried a lot. She begged me to take her home instead, but I refused to budge. Her mom brought her inside, and I told her that I would be blocking my wife's calls for the day while at work. So if there was an emergency, then her mom would have to be the one to get a hold of me. Her mom agreed with me and told me that this was probably the best idea since she was also just as frustrated with her daughter as she seemed to not take any of this seriously. So here I am at work feeling like I might be overreacting by kicking her out for the next few days. So am I at fault in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're overreacting in the slightest. Your wife is literally not taking care of herself. She's being careless and reckless in what she's eating, and that is not only incredibly irresponsible, but not fair for you. Like for reference, this lady is in her 30s. She is more than old enough to read the ingredients on a listing of some kind of food, and from the sounds of it, this is a life-threatening allergy. So why would she not be more attentive to what she should and shouldn't eat? Like, this is just careless, reckless, and incredibly irresponsible. And the fact that she's not taking care of herself in this way is just so disappointing. So no, you're not overreacting by kicking her out, because this is a message that she needs to take seriously. Because one day she's gonna be by herself and this is gonna happen. And I'm willing to assume that the worst would happen to her if you weren't around to try and save her life. Am I the jerk for changing my name and not telling my father about it? Especially since my father and I shared the same name. Because after spending a lifetime of dealing with my lousy father, I decided that I don't want his name attached to me any longer. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was named after my father. I have a sister that is 11 months older than me, and my father walked out when I was only 6 months old. He popped up every once in a while until he came to live with us, and then he left again when my mom got sick, and then started raising someone else's children. He was a real parent to them, despite being the whole children are meant to be seen and not heard type of person. My sister and I were included in things with the other kids at the request of my stepmother, but it still felt like he wasn't my dad. I accepted the other children as extra siblings, and they accepted me and my sister as well. My stepmother cared for us as her own when we visited, and I loved them all. Well, my father ended up leaving again and getting with a different woman, and still for years never made an attempt to mend things with me. He would call to tell me happy birthday, but never on my birthday, and I never corrected him either. I felt like I shouldn't have to correct him because he was there when I was born. My sister was the one who reached out to him and has forgiven him and allows him to be in my niece and nephew's lives. Now, I don't have kids yet, but I don't want him around me or my family. I really feel like he doesn't deserve it. In recent conversation, he asked if I was going to continue the carrying of our name, and I just laughed a bit and I said, oh, I don't know, maybe. But on the inside, I felt very uncomfortable about that question, and I actually brought it up to my wife. She feels the same way that I do. She knows everything about my experiences with him and feels that he shouldn't have a chance to be a good grandfather to make up for being a lousy father. He put me through so much as a kid, and as much as I wanted him to go away, my mom wanted us to know him and to allow him to be a part of our lives. She didn't want us to grow up without a dad or calling someone else dad. She didn't know about any of what he did until I told her when I was 27 years old. She asked why I didn't like talking to him, and I told her everything that happened while she was at the doctor and dialysis. Well, she was mortified and called him up and yelled at him for an hour, but he actually just told her that if she wanted him to parent us in a certain way, then she's the one who should have said so. I thought a lot about what he had asked, and I came to the conclusion that I did not want to continue the name. I didn't want to pass on to my son the burden that is my father, and I also didn't want the name myself. So I went and I got it changed, and I never planned on telling my father. But when I brought it up to my sister, she got mad and started laying into me, yelling and asking how I could be so selfish and how it would make our father feel when he finds out. But I yelled back at her, asking if she remembered what he had put us through as kids. After getting off the phone with her, I thought about what she said, and now I feel like I've made a mistake. So am I the jerk for changing my name and not telling my dad about it? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your dad doesn't sound like a winner in the slightest, and it really seems like he not only neglected you, but he's also not sorry that he did it. Like seriously, what kind of response was that to your mom? He said to her, oh yeah, if you wanted me to raise them a certain way, then you should have said something. But like seriously, wouldn't loving your kids be something that you would do like automatically? This guy literally abandoned you multiple times. He was a lousy father, and now he wants you to continue his name for selfish reasons. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for changing your name, because at the end of the day, this is your decision and not his. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my part of an apartment for a vacation that I couldn't go on? Because right now, my friends, despite having 2 months notice to change their reservations, are literally blaming me for having to pay hundreds of dollars extra per person just to stay in their accommodation. And at this point, I'm so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and back in July, I was supposed to take a trip to Ibiza with my friends. This trip had been planned since February of this year, and the entire time that it was planned, I felt kind of left out. It really looked like they were trying to get me to not go, either by booking the most expensive flights or by not listening to anything I had to say. And this is despite the fact that I'm the only one who speaks Spanish, as well as the only one who understood the descriptions and locations of the hotels and apartments they were looking at. We finally decided on an apartment, which wasn't cheap, but it was doable, and paid for the flight. It's important to note that we didn't have to pay in advance, and there was no cancellation fees until 4 days before departure, and this was booked using one of my friend's accounts. Fast forward to April, and I got a call back for a job I really wanted, and I was due to start working on May 3rd. So this meant I was probably unable to attend this summer trip. So I told my friends in advance that there was the possibility I couldn't go. Well, as soon as I started working my job, my manager confirmed that I would not be able to mature enough vacation days to be able to go. So I told my friends. I offered to help them find someone to replace me and told them to text me if they needed anything, such as finding a new place to stay, as we could cancel the booking and not pay any fees. Now, when I said this to all of them, none of them looked or acted disappointed that I couldn't go. In fact, they didn't even answer my text message. Fast forward to July 1st, which is the day the free cancellation expired. My friends finally texted me saying they tried to ask around a bit, but no one could join them and take my place. So, thinking that they cared for me and understood my situation, I offered to try and help with the money for the apartment, which I know was a mistake on my part, but I honestly thought they would have done the same for me if I was in their situation. Well, they asked me to pay for the entirety of my share, which I did not find right, as I had given them 2 months notice. Plus, we did not have to give any deposit, and they had 2 months to cancel and book somewhere else. In the end, they ended up paying 100 extra euros per person for the apartment. They then texted me in late August just to tell me how I had broken an almost 10-year-old friendship and that I didn't have any respect for their money. After that, I completely cut ties with them, but some of our old friend group sided with them and keeps telling me that I'm the jerk and that it was my responsibility to help them out. So seriously, am I at fault in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here. These people suck. You mean to tell me that your friends were so lazy that they didn't think to like cancel the booking ahead of time and try to find anything else after you told them you couldn't go? Like seriously, what is going on right now? That is so stupid, it's not even funny. And you even offered to help them out. You told them explicitly, hey, I'll help you find someone to replace my spot if you really want me to, while even offering to help them find another place to stay, since it would be extra for them to stay there without your involvement. But what do they do instead? Oh, I don't know. They try to like pin this on you and be like, wow, I can't believe you did this. We have to pay extra now and it's your fault. But it's like, no, stupid, this is your fault. These people didn't take the initiative to get any of this done. And because of that, they're trying to use you as a scapegoat for some stupid reason. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because this is just insane behavior. And if your friends really want to cut you off because of their dumb decisions, then honestly, it's probably for the best, because these supposed friends don't sound like very good people in the first place. Am I the jerk for not letting my parents stay in my college accommodation after they basically invited themselves over without asking me first? Because right now, after a big fight, I'm starting to feel really guilty, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, so I go to college in a city that's relatively close by, and during the week, I stay in a house with 4 others, and then I come home for the weekends. My parents pay for my rent and give me a bit of spending money for the week. I also have a job, so they don't give me all of my spending money. When I started college a few months ago, my mom suggested that they could stay in my house if they wanted to visit my city that I'm staying in, instead of paying for a hotel for the weekend. Now, for reference, I don't live in a particularly nice city, so not having to pay for a hotel is pretty much the only attraction. Well, I made it clear back then that I was not okay with that. I didn't say it to them, but my main reason for this is that I don't want them in my bed. Fast forward to today, when my mom told me that she booked a dinner in a restaurant in my city for a couple of weekends from now, and that she planned for her and my dad to stay in my house. I reminded her that I said I wasn't okay with that, and she said that she thought I would change my mind by now. Now, I think that assuming that without asking me first is a pretty entitled thing to do, and making the booking without asking me is completely her own fault. The list of reasons why I wouldn't want them there has actually grown since the last time we talked about it. Like I said, I don't want them in my bed, but also at least one of my roommates stays in the house some weekends, and I don't really want them interacting. Also, the walls are thin, and my bed squeaks a lot, which brings me back to the first point. Also, I don't want them looking through my fridge and seeing how little food I have, as they've been worried that I haven't been eating enough, which is kind of true. I told them that I always eat a good breakfast, when most days I don't eat breakfast at all. And trust me, they're going to be nagging me about this for the next 4 years. Also, I just feel that giving them unrestricted access to the house is an invasion of mine and all of my roommates' privacy, even though we have nothing to hide. Anyways, we had a big fight about it, and then a little while later, my mom told me that if it bothers me that much, then they didn't have to go away for the weekend, and they would just cancel the dinner reservation and choose to go out in our hometown instead, which now I kind of feel bad about. But at the same time, I feel that I have valid reasons for not wanting them to stay in my house. And if they weren't paying my rent, I don't think they would have much of an argument to stay there at all. But in this case, they do, so that is a pretty big point in their favor. So am I at fault here? Because right now, I am still incredibly annoyed. Now, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because the way your parents are acting is so weird. First of all, if they really wanted to stay with you, then they should have asked you first instead of being like, oh yeah, we're coming over on this one weekend. I hope you're ready for us, and of course we didn't ask. Why would we? It's like, seriously, what are we doing right now? This is not fair for you in the slightest, because it's putting you in a weird spot. If you lived alone, I might be a little more understanding of them being like, hey, I'm coming by, but it's the fact that you have roommates. Like, that alone makes this incredibly inappropriate. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation, because the way your parents are acting, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My entitled narcissistic mother is ruining my wedding before it even takes place, as she is once again making everything about her, while also turning my entire family against me if I don't bend to her will. And now I feel like I'm at my breaking point, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so there is so much to this, and I really hope that this very condensed version makes even a little bit of sense to somebody. My longtime fiance and I have finally decided to make the step and get married. This has been in the works for all of 3 weeks, and it's already been an absolute nightmare due to my family. Long story short, my parents have been divorced for over 10 years, and it has been ugly ever since the beginning. For added context, very critical actions on my mom's part are what inevitably led to the divorce, and since then, the relationship between her and her older, now adult children has been extremely strained due to her actions and behavior, so I'll let that speak for itself. Now, due to the cost, our best option for a venue is my dad's house as a backyard event. While trying to put some feelers out to my mom's side of the family about the wedding, several family members made no effort to dance around their decision to straight up not attend if it was held at his house. Now, trying to make this work for everyone, we were able to find a different relative's home to act as the reception venue, and this seemed to get everyone on the same page of being willing to attend. But unfortunately, this is where the messiest part begins. My mom and I have not been on speaking terms for over a year. This stemmed from a situation like many others that she herself instigated and set off her full narcissistic tendencies. Despite not being on speaking terms, I've had several big life achievements this year and have attempted to include her in the conversation via a family group chat, including the decision to move forward with the wedding. She has never responded or participated in any of the messages that I have sent, including the wedding. With the wedding now in motion, I have family members telling me to reach out to her directly, that essentially she feels she deserves more from me than inclusion in a group chat despite not speaking to me for a year and not reciprocating the effort that I have offered through the open door of including her in the group chat. Her side of the family says they will not attend if she is not invited to the wedding, so I just caved and I directly texted her, reiterating once again that I have deliberately included her in these major life moments all year, and I've still not gotten a response. I reiterated that I understand she has her feelings, and I also have mine, but regardless, I'm still putting forward the effort that she is not reciprocating. Well, as you might guess, she didn't respond. Just like so many other times in my life, she has enabled so much turmoil and completely takes the joy away from something to celebrate. With her lack of response, I do anticipate her not willing to try to work things out with me just to try and attend my wedding, which also means I fully expect her side of the family to inevitably pull out of attending as well. I'm ready to pull the plug on the entire thing when so much of it has already become a fight within 3 weeks of planning. So am I overreacting and throwing myself a pity party? Or would you also be upset in this situation? What should I do? Oh man, this situation sucks for so many reasons, but for me, it all begins and ends with the fact that your mom is an absolute piece of garbage. Once again, she's making everything about herself and trying to make you look like the bad guy. Like seriously, this is so uncalled for, it's not even funny. And it's also not fair. You're literally trying to reach out and extend an olive branch, and this lady is ignoring you and being like, well, I'm just not going to respond to you. And it's like, okay, well, this is your own fault. The original poster updated us and said that she finally did respond, but will only speak to the original poster if they go to her house and do it in person. And by the way, their mom lives 2.5 hours away from her. So the original poster decided to change the venue back to what it was originally, and they're literally just closing this chapter and moving on with their lives. So truly, they made the absolute best decision in this scenario, and I don't blame them for doing what's best for them and their wedding. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by breaking an Italian man's pasta machine in a cooking class, and I honestly feel terrible and I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So I was in a fresh pasta cooking course, which was in 2 sessions, and this was the second one. And our Italian teacher had gotten some bad feedback on last session's cleaning from the school. I felt bad that he got the complaints for our sloppy mess, so this time I wanted to be extra helpful. We were getting ready to eat and some people started to clean. Now the teacher had brought his own very old metallic colored pasta machine, and I was the only one of the attendees that had brought his own. My spouse had bought it for me. It was a beautiful red one. Like this thing was a Ferrari, the same Atlas brand as the old one. Pasta machines have a tightening torque at the bottom, which attaches them to the table so that the machine stays still while you spin the crank. So I had to attach my machine, which has a very bulky torque that you can tighten very tightly, and I went to the other side of the table to take off the teacher's machine. That way he wouldn't have to do it himself. Well, somehow I forgot which way the torque in general was supposed to go, and for the most part, it has to be turned in order to open them up, and somehow I managed to tighten it even more. So I realized it and I switched the other way around, and with a little bit more force applied, part of the bracket came off. I went to tell our typical Italian teacher man, and he said to me that I am a brutal man, asking me what I had done, and he then went to do the same and managed to clip off the other part of the bracket. After that, he got brutal and just pulled the machine off the table with some force. Well, when this happened, I immediately apologized, and he stared at me and the machine in a little bit of disbelief, and with shock on his face, he said to me, well, I have your address and email, and before he could continue, I jumped in and said, yes, so you can send me the bill. And yes, he was nice about it, and we joked about it afterwards, but the machine was really old, so it probably had some kind of sentimental value. But honestly, oh well. I'm going to his other cooking class next week, and he said he likes Lamborghinis more than Ferraris. So now I told him I'll park one for him, because truly I messed up, and the least I can do is try to replace it. Yeah, this is a good example of maybe you did just a little bit too much to help out, and instead of actually helping out, you broke something that probably really did mean something to this guy. But thankfully, this guy does seem to have a good sense of humor, and he did take this in stride, because man, if this really was some kind of like family heirloom, this could have been a much different story. My boyfriend's sister resents me and my boyfriend for all the money that we have, and now this is causing massive fights between the two of them, leaving me stuck in the middle, unsure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my boyfriend for 1.5 years. We are both employed and we earn steady salaries. When it comes to paying for anything, we usually just split it down the middle. I've never asked my boyfriend to ever pay for anything for me. If he has ever paid for something just for me, it's because he insisted to do so, and that happens between the both of us, vice versa. Now, my boyfriend's sister is unemployed, as she was recently let go from her job. I've always gotten along with her fine. I've gotten her Christmas and birthday presents, and I've never had an argument with her. She also does not have a driver's license, and honestly, I don't know why. She has no major disabilities or any kind of setback. Now, I have a car, a license, and I pay for my own petrol. I also drive regularly. My boyfriend drives me around if he wants to, but I have never asked him to, because I can drive myself, so I have no need. My boyfriend drives his sister around and always asked her for petrol money, and this is maybe 100 Rand per week, and we are from South Africa, so our currency is Rands. Since she got let go from her job, she has started getting resentful about the petrol money. About 3 weeks ago, she hands over 30 Rand instead of of 100. My boyfriend asked her where the rest is, and she responds by saying, "That's all I'm giving you because you drive your girlfriend around for free," which isn't even fair. My boyfriend then hit the roof and a major argument ensued. It turns out the sister has been snippy about my boyfriend not giving her spending money anymore, or even paying for her other bills, which honestly, I didn't even know he did until he started venting about the whole thing to me. And he did this because he's saving up for an engagement ring, and we are both saving up for a wedding. And this was just the final straw. And apparently, she's been snippy about that too, because she says that he's never gotten her anything nice like that before. I just said, "Okay, I can help you pay for the engagement ring." And he said to me, "No, I want to pay for it myself." Now, my boyfriend's parents can't support his sister anymore because they don't have a lot to begin with. So far, I have said nothing, and I have stayed out of it because I want to maintain a civil relationship with the sister. So I have not spoken to her about what she's been saying. And their parents kind of just shrug their shoulders and say, "Sort it out." So honestly, I'm not sure what to say to my boyfriend to try and help out, since he is at his breaking point with his sister. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I know the temptation here is to be like, "Oh man, I want to get involved. Is there something I can do or say to try and help this out? How can I be involved?" But honestly, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would stay completely out of this. Like, this really does seem like a nightmare waiting to happen, and it seems like some kind of like family dispute that you just don't want to be involved with. Like, truly, this doesn't sound like a good time, and I would hate to be mixed up in the middle of this, because I'm willing to bet that your boyfriend knows better than anybody else that his sister is being very entitled. So I'm fairly certain to say that this is probably something that he can take care of on his own. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my mother-in-law's house for dinner any longer after she started being so late in getting things ready that we now eat dinner at about 9 o'clock or even later? Because right now I am incredibly frustrated. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mother-in-law has recently moved back to our hometown after finally escaping from her ex. My husband and I were unaware of the severity of the situation because my mother-in-law made efforts to hide it, and I know that my husband is feeling quite guilty about it. But my mother-in-law is doing better, and she has her own little apartment in town and has been working and rebuilding her life. We've made efforts to support her as much as possible, but we are in a tight spot financially, so what we can do is limited. For the past few couple of weeks, my mother-in-law has been inviting us over to her place for dinner multiple times a week. She has always loved to cook and says that she is excited to get to cook for family again. Plus, she gets to spend time with our toddler. The problem is that she has consistently told us to be there at about 6 o'clock p.m., only for her to not have dinner ready until 9 o'clock or even later, and she refuses any help in the kitchen. Now, this is a major issue because we wind up staying out past our daughter's bedtime. Her whole nighttime routine gets thrown off, and it makes it harder to get down for bed, not to mention how cranky she gets waiting on the food. I've tried to gently talk to my mother-in-law about this, but she has always been critical of me and my parenting. She thinks it's outrageous that I keep my daughter on such a strict schedule and insists that when her kids were little, they didn't have schedules, and they just ate when they were hungry and fell asleep when they were tired, and it all worked out just fine. I asked my husband to talk to his mom about it, but she basically told him the same thing. But then she went off on him about how she was just trying to help us out financially by providing a few meals for us, and how terrible it was for us to try and make her feel bad for just wanting to spend time with her family. So he just dropped the subject, and we've been back to her place for dinner a couple more times since then, and it's still being served at about 9 o'clock p.m. And now she's also making passive-aggressive comments about how I need to loosen up and how I can't expect the world to stick to my schedule. Now, my husband thinks that we should just put up with it because his mom has been through so much, and he feels partially responsible because he was unaware of the situation and wasn't able to protect her. But after a particularly critical phone call with her yesterday, I told my husband that I didn't want to go to her place for dinner any longer. He insisted that she is just stressed because of everything she's been through, and we need to show her some leniency. But I told him that she can come over to our place for dinner every now and then, and that would be fine. But I am not going to be held captive at her apartment anymore. We didn't really come to an agreement though, and I'm thinking that maybe I'm being too harsh on my mother-in-law, and I'm making my husband's life miserable in the process. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, this whole scenario is so annoying in my opinion, it's not even funny. For starters, the mother-in-law is not eating food until 9 o'clock p.m., and I bet that's exactly when your daughter's supposed to go to bed. The fact that she can't understand that and is somehow dismissing that and trying to justify her actions, in my opinion, is so toxic. Like, why should you show up at 6 o'clock and not eat your food until what, 9:30, 10 o'clock? All with her being like, no, I don't want any help in the kitchen. It's like, seriously, lady, I understand that you're stressed out and you're going through some stuff, but you're literally hindering my life. Like, this isn't fair for you at all. And sure, your husband feels guilty because he didn't know about his mom and all the stuff stuff that she was going through. But guess what? That's not his fault. He didn't know about it because she kept it a secret. And I'm not blaming the mother-in-law for keeping it a secret. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of nuance and a lot of tough things that she went through. But in my opinion, there's no reason for your husband to beat himself up about something he did not know about. So truly, this is not your fault, and I don't blame you for speaking up, because this truly would get annoying very quickly, and I don't blame you for saying something in the first place. Am I the jerk for refusing to be responsible for my parents' dogs while they go away on vacation for over a week? Because their dogs are incredibly high maintenance, and they will disrupt my entire work week from the ground up. But despite the fact that I tried to explain this to my parents and tell them that this would not work with my schedule, my parents have now said that I'm being selfish and that I'm the jerk for not accommodating their anniversary. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old male, and I'm the oldest sibling of my parents. I got married this year, and I moved out to live with my now wife in May, but I only live about 15 minutes away from my parents. My 22-year-old brother is away in college, and he lives about 2 hours away by driving, and my 18-year-old sister also just went away to college herself several states away, and so my parents are now technically empty nesters. My parents also have 2 dogs who are very high maintenance. They are extremely active dogs that require 2 walks and runs at the park per day just to get all of their energy out, and they also go crazy when my mom is not home. When I've watched the dogs in the past, I can hardly get any sleep because the dogs are restless due to a change in their routine. In the past, when we have lived at home, it has not been much of a problem for us kids that live at home to pick up the slack with the dogs if my parents are out of town. But my parents are going on a vacation for their anniversary in January for a week, and they've asked my brother and I to cover the responsibility of the dogs while they are gone. And this would involve one of us walking the dogs twice daily and staying overnight so that they don't get lonely or destroy anything. Now, because my brother lives 2 hours away at school, he can't realistically go to class and come and go home during the weekdays. So, given that, the weekdays would be completely on me. But here's the problem. I have a job that has an unpredictable schedule during the week. I might start early or end late on any given day, so it would be extremely hard for me to commit to the routine of walking the dogs twice a day. My wife and I also just got married, and she works night shifts as well as every other weekend. I don't want to leave my wife at home when she is home and go sleep at my parents' house just because of the dogs. I would basically not see her for almost a week because of her night shift schedule, and because she needs to sleep during the day, it just wouldn't allow her to come with me. And if she happens to be off over that weekend, then I do not want to be responsible for the dogs on the rare weekend that we are both available to do something together. Also, staying overnight at my parents' house would wreck my sleep schedule because the dogs would stay up all night due to the change in their routine. I told my parents this reasoning, and they actually told me that I was the jerk, all because they felt that I was looking for reasons to get out of this instead of trying to make it work for their anniversary. They then told me that I'm making this a bigger deal than it needs to be, but I find it ridiculous to ask me to leave my wife for a week just to stay at their house for the dogs. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really sounds like those dogs are high maintenance. Like, sure, you could probably make this work in some kind of way, but the way your parents are phrasing this, in my opinion, it kind of shows their hand in this situation. They know their dogs are obnoxious, and they just don't want to find someone else to put up with it. Because you definitely said the quiet part out loud. You know for a fact you don't want to do this, and they're trying to act like, oh, you're just trying to find reasons to not do this. And it's like, okay, well, clearly you know you've got a problem that I don't want to solve. Also, the fact that your work schedule is kind of like all over the place, and your wife also works at night, for me is more than enough of a reason for you to be like, listen, I can't make this work. This literally is not going to work with my schedule, and my wife can't step up and do it because she's sleeping during the day. So personally, I don't think you're being selfish or the jerk at all. It's not selfish to be like, listen, I can't make this happen. This is disrupting my life, and I literally have no time. Because I really believe that if anybody is being inconsiderate in this situation, in my opinion, I think it's the parents, and definitely not you or your wife. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my ex-fiance's brother back for a dress that he bought me for a wedding that I just canceled? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I got engaged in July to my long-term boyfriend, who we will call Matt. We were excited to start the next chapter of our lives, and so we started planning the wedding immediately. Money is tight, but I have been saving for my wedding, so many of the costs were coming out of my savings, with Matt chipping in where he can, which was absolutely fine as we were planning our future. Matt spoke to his brother, who we will call Tom, and he offered to pay for my reception dress. And in my culture, it's normal to have the wife white dress for the ceremony and then a traditional dress for the reception. Now, Tom has been living with me and my parents for a few months after he was kicked out of his place and then his uncle's. And it turns out that he was a peeping Tom, if you know what I mean. We took him in to try and help him get back on his feet, but since he moved in, he has just taken advantage of me entirely. He has taken my room while I sleep on the couch, and he often sleeps in, so I can't even go get changed till he gets out of my room. He also rode off his car and started driving mine to work, meaning I had to travel to a coworker to catch a lift to my office, which is adding at least 2 hours a day to my commute. He also doesn't pay rent or contribute to the grocery bill at all. After my father got retrenched, these issues finally came to a head, and my father told Tom that it was ridiculous that I had to catch a ride with a coworker and that I get home late constantly, while he drives my car as he pleases. He stated that I will now drive my own car and he can Uber to work. Well, this resulted in Tom and Matt deciding to get a flat closer to Tom's work so they don't have to pay that much for Uber, and finally with that, Tom moved out in an amicable arrangement, or so I thought. I don't know what Tom told his family, but I started getting irate phone calls from Matt and Tom's family members asking me how dare I throw Tom out like that. After a lot of back and forth, we agreed that my parents and I would meet with the family members and Matt just to try and smooth everything out and clear the air. Except when the meeting came, Matt didn't pitch, and when I called to ask where he was, he stated he knew that we didn't throw him out, so it wasn't his problem. I couldn't believe this man that I wanted to marry couldn't be bothered to deal with his own family. The meeting didn't go well, with lots of shouting and accusation, and eventually enough was enough. With this on top of all the other issues I've had with them in the wedding planning process, I finally snapped and I called off the whole thing. I messaged Matt a couple of times since then, but he's pretty much ghosted me. Now, here's where I might be the jerk. Tom has messaged me today demanding that I pay him back for the dress in 4 days' time, but I told him no, and that he must take it up with Matt as I have just paid double the amount to cancel our wedding venue. Also, I don't have the dress yet, and as far as I know, he's the one that has it. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that went down? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I need to say this really is insane. To start things out, honestly, Tom is a massive piece of garbage. He was taking your car and using it whenever he wanted, forcing you to go 2 hours out of your way just to get to work. Like seriously, how did that even happen in the first place? It is crazy to me that this was even allowed in the first place. The second anybody heard, oh wait, you're going 2 hours out of your way during your commute just to get to work? Like that is not gonna happen. I'm sorry, that's just not allowed. Also, this guy doesn't pay any money towards rent or the grocery bill. Like seriously, this is so annoying. So you mean to tell me that he was just some weirdo who lived rent-free in your house and was also taking your car for whatever he wanted? Like this guy's a grade A loser. Like seriously, how can anyone possibly defend that? So when Matt and Tom's family decides to be like, wow, you kicked him out, I can't believe it. It's almost like, wait a second, didn't you do the same thing? Like these people literally kicked him out for being a creep and a weirdo. And if you don't know what peeping Tom means, trust me, it's not something you want to be called. It basically means that this guy was looking places he definitely shouldn't when people weren't looking. So ignore the fact that you guys even let him in your house in the first place, but also the fact that Matt's like, well, this isn't really my problem, so I'm just gonna let you deal with it. Like seriously, that is a massive red flag, and I'm so glad that you called on to that, because this is how Matt truly is. In the face of controversy and some kind of confrontation, he's going to tuck his tail between his legs and run away. That's what you can expect from him, and honestly, that is so tragic. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation, because Matt is an absolute coward, and his family is really stupid. And the fact that anybody's believing Tom in this scenario, in my opinion, says a lot about these people. My mother's creepy boyfriend demands that I pay him $340 after he repaired my laptop and bought me new glasses, despite the fact that I never asked him to do either of those things. Because right now, my mom is not helping me, and this guy is treating me like garbage, demanding that I not buy anything else until he gets paid. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female, and due to personal circumstances, I moved in with my mother and her boyfriend for a few months leading up to Christmas. My mom has wanted me to move in for years, which I refused after being in care for a short period of time. Now, around the same time, my mom sat on my glasses and snapped the hinge and the arm off of them. After a few attempts to fix them, it was clear that they were irreparable. I use my glasses for reading my TV screen, as the small writing can be blurry, but my vision otherwise is 100% fine. Now, I also have an Asus VivoBook laptop, which costs about $300, and it was broken. Well, my mother's boyfriend surprises me one morning with not only new glasses, but also my laptop completely fixed. Now, he took it out of a communal drawer without telling me, which made me uncomfortable, and the computer had been completely wiped, which he went ahead with without even even asking me. He then paid for it to be upgraded with lots of extra storage. Time goes by and my mom tells me that he wants the money back for the laptop and storage upgrades. And I tried to explain that it felt really weird, and she agreed but said this was something that he often did, and that if I wanted to keep the piece, then I simply had to pay him back. He also refused to tell me how much it cost to fix it. I was supposed to just give him money, and he would tell me when it was paid back. Now, I'm a people pleaser by nature, and I didn't want to rock the boat, so I agreed to pay and I gave him $120. I then asked again for the price, and I was told that he had the receipt and he would show me. Well, guess what? He never did. I then gave him another $80 and was told that it was all paid back. Well, fast forward months later, and he is now demanding $140 for the glasses, which is super annoying because I could have gotten a free replacement through my health coverage. I'm being heavily guilted every day for not paying him. I even got myself some food a week ago and was told that it was rude and not to do it again until I pay him back. Now, the receipt for the glasses has still not materialized either. For reference, my mom has exactly zero income. She has no job and no benefits. So even though she broke the glasses, she still can't pay for them. If I had the expendable money to fling away $340, I definitely would do that, but I don't. I have tried to be fair in the situation. And to be clear, I had said multiple times I was going to get my laptop fixed and I was going to get a free pair of new glasses. And these were presented to me as a surprise gift. This guy is also very rude to me all the time. He called me a jerk recently, if the word jerk started with the letter C, if you know what I mean. And the environment around the house has been so bad, I never leave my room unless he's at work in order to avoid his many sly comments. If he was kinder to me, it would be much easier for me to just give him the money when I'm able to. I have found myself waking up, thinking about the situation, and basically tossing and turning, unable to sleep, all because of my anger, which really is very unlike me. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation for not having this money at the drop of the hat? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, this is so weird. Why would this guy do this? Like, this guy literally took your belongings and said, here you go, I fixed them for you, and then demands that you pay him for services you never asked of him. Like, this guy's a total weirdo. Like, what is wrong with him? For me personally, the fact that he took your laptop and cleared it out and added extra storage and gave it back to you, like, that is really sketchy, and I would never use that laptop. Like, I would actually make sure that's really cleared out and there's not some kind of like secret spyware on there. I don't know if there's some way you can reset the laptop, but if I was in your shoes, I would scrub that thing down head to toe just to make sure nothing's in it. Because based on this guy's behavior, I can believe that he would do something sketchy like this. And seriously, why is your mom okay with this too? She's sitting here talking about not rocking the boat. Meanwhile, her boyfriend is going out of his way to basically scam your daughter. Like, this whole scenario is so weird, and the fact that you're basically being extorted to pay for something you never wanted, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My restaurant job has brought in some of the weirdest customers I've ever had to deal with, and after putting up with this for 3 years, I'm now questioning everything I've ever had going on, because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been at said restaurant for about 3 years now, and I've been serving there for most of those 3 years. Every year around the holidays, such as Thanksgiving and Christmas, is usually amazing. Customers usually watch you bust your butt, and typically they tip really well for it. But as of today, it seems as if a bunch of jerks have popped out of the woodworks. We did have some crazy coupons going on, and I know that brings out the worst in people, but a total of 2 tables actually used said coupons, so that really shouldn't be an excuse. The first table that really made me question my existence was one that had 5 people, but instead of taking a booth that can fit up to like 7 people, they demanded to push 2 tables together to make an 8-top. Now, because it's Thanksgiving week, that really messed us over later on. My next table flat up screamed at me because of something corporate decided to start doing a year ago, which is like, sure, whatever, I can't control that. They also tipped me 10% because what they ordered had an upcharge. And again, I don't get paid hourly and I'm not corporate, so I don't know what they want me to do about it. My last table said I was the best server they've ever had, but then they proceeded to tip me $1 on a $40 tab. He also chugged 10 sweet teas in the hour he was there, and yes, I was counting. And that was also when my mental stability actually left my body. However, that was my last table of the day, so I left after that. The table that actually did it for me was my mid-shift. They are regular customers that are apparently gluten-free. However, they ordered nothing to match that. They sent back their salads 3 times. And I can say the first one was genuinely my fault, and I told them that. I mean, we are all human and we mess up from time to time, time, but the second time, the complaint was that their roasted chicken was too peppery. And as a side note, our roasted chicken is not only dry, but it's also unseasoned. It seriously just tastes like dry turkey. I told her I can do it without the protein so it's not peppery, since you can't do non-existent seasoning. Then they wanted to buy $200 worth of gift cards, which again, no problem there. We actually have a contest to see who sells the most, and it puts my name in a hat, so that's fine by me. But then they tried to pay with said gift card, but then 10 minutes later, I realized that we cannot take gift card purchases with a gift card. This is my first year selling gift cards, so it definitely took me on a wild goose chase. I then tell them that I can only do the food with said coupon, and they were fine with me splitting it like that. However, the buy one get one coupon went off that check as soon as I split it. So without me or the customers realizing that I did this, I ran the card through without any of that on there, which then turned into another problem where I had to void the whole check and do it again. And by the way, this is all happening while I have 8 other tables to take care of. Anyways, after the whole hour they were there, as well as the 15 refills that they got, I ended up getting a 10% tip. They didn't even pay for 2 of the $12 salads, and I did all of that for 10%, plus these people come in all the time. So truly, with all due respect, I think people like this should not be allowed to go out, and it should be okay to tell people don't come back. So am I overreacting, or am I crazy in this scenario? Or is there something in the air that's making people act like idiots? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Yeah, I've been in this situation before where it seems like, man, everybody is out of their minds. Nobody's acting like a normal human being, and everybody's just off their rocker. So no, I don't think you were overreacting, but I definitely think this is just one of those situations that definitely can happen in the restaurant business. Because trust me, I agree with everything that you had to say. Am I the jerk for leaving in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner? All because of the way that my mom treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mother hosts Thanksgiving dinner at her house every single year. It's a small family event with my parents, me, my brother's family, and my sister-in-law's family attending. Now, we avoid family quarrels by implementing a strict no politics rule and trying our very best to be civil. I should probably also mention that we are not a particularly close-knit family. We rarely see each other beyond these events, since my brother lives in South Africa and I travel a lot due to my work. Thanksgiving is important to my mom, since it's one of the rare times that we're all together. Anyways, the main problem that I have with my mother is her constant critique of me. She has a habit of making passive-aggressive comments about my life choices, from my career to my lack of children, all the way up to the way that I dress. I've addressed this with her multiple times, but she doesn't really seem to be aware of it. My father claims it's just her way of fussing and expressing that she does care, but it does hurt though, because my brother is never criticized in the same manner. I cannot entirely fault her for her criticism, since I did majorly mess up my life a few months ago, and it has affected her opinion of me negatively. It does not excuse the way that I acted, but I just wanted to explain why I left. By the time we finished dinner, I was a bit prickly because of some of her commentary. Now, for reference, I made a cake for dessert. I was explicitly put in charge of it, and no one specified what exactly I should make. So I opted to make a maple cheesecake. I did my best, and honestly, I thought it looked okay. My mom normally makes pumpkin pies, but I really hate pumpkins, so I thought perhaps we could try something new. As I was bringing out the cheesecake, my mom looked at it somewhat wearily and announced that she had decided to make the usual pie as well. This caught me off guard. I asked why she didn't tell me beforehand, and she said something like, "Well, we figured that you would do your own thing, so I thought it was best to have a backup plan." She then went on to cut the pie and serve it to everybody, instructing me to leave the cheesecake in the kitchen. When someone asked to try my dessert, she said, "Let's not mix too many flavors at once," which honestly felt passive-aggressive. I know it's immature for an adult to get this upset over a triviality, but I just politely refused as she was handing me a slice of pie. And then I decided to retrieve my coat and I left the party. People were calling after me, I think, but by that point, I was crying for some reason, and it would have been too humiliating to have an emotional outburst in front of everyone for no reason. My mom then just texted me, saying that it was incredibly rude and immature of me to leave like that, especially on Thanksgiving. My brother also sent me a message saying that I'm acting irrationally. I feel horrible for leaving so abruptly, especially because my parents are getting older, and we are already not that close. Something about my mother seems to turn me into a neurotic teenager, and I honestly hate it. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because seriously, your mom sounds like a piece of garbage. Like, she really does sound like a nasty piece of work, and I completely understand why you're not that close to her. Like, she could have been so much better about this entire situation without being a massive jerk about it in the process. But instead, she chooses to be nasty for literally no other reason other than just to put you down one more time. And I completely understand where you're coming from. Sometimes those passive passive-aggressive remarks can be worse than anything more pointed. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would question ever going back to her house again on any other kind of holiday, because it really seems like this kind of treatment is definitely going to happen. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for choosing my boyfriend's family over mine for Thanksgiving dinner? Because after I left to go to my boyfriend's house, my mom has been guilt-tripping me hard, saying that I'm abandoning my family, all because I agreed to eat at my boyfriend's house. And right now, I feel very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I spent Thanksgiving with my boyfriend's family, and now my parents are upset. My family has never been big on Thanksgiving. We've never had a traditional dinner together, and most years, I've either just worked or done my own thing. Every once in a while, my mom will make food, but it's just there for us to eat whenever we wanted. In fact, we would never just sit down and eat as a family. Also, this kind of ended during my high school years. Well, this year, my boyfriend invited me to his family's Thanksgiving, but initially I declined since my dad mentioned that he might invite his family over, which would have been an absolute first. But when I followed up with my dad the day before Thanksgiving, he said it wasn't happening after all. So I told my mom that I'd go to my boyfriend's dinner at 12 o'clock, and seriously, she seemed okay with it. But when I was getting ready to leave the next day, my mom was cooking and told me, well, you better eat with your brother and sister before leaving to eat with another family. The food should be ready in about 2 hours. Now, at this point, it's about 11:30 in the morning, so I told her that I couldn't because I wanted to be on time for my boyfriend's dinner, and also because I was bringing the apple cider for the dinner and his dad had gotten us movie tickets. But then in that moment, my parents got really mad and said that I was forgetting my roots and that I had chosen my boyfriend's family over them. Now, if I knew that my mom was still cooking and wanting us to eat together first, I wish he would have told me last night so I would have told my boyfriend's mom that I would be there to eat with them or even to go to the movies afterward. Now, I felt bad, but still I left the next day, and my mom is still saying that I picked my boyfriend's family over them and all this other stuff, and I just honestly don't think it's that serious. Also, a while ago, she said she's going to stop calling to check on me when I come in late after work past 7 o'clock p.m. because I told her I'm 23 and I don't need her to call me if I'm not home by 7, which apparently she took offense to, and now she's saying that this is going to be another one of the things that she won't bother me about, since apparently I see nothing wrong with not eating with family first. So I told her that I'm not sure what that situation has to do with any of this, and that she's being petty and weird. I honestly think my parents are just not used to their kids having a significant other, and they just don't know how to react to certain things, because none of my siblings have ever been with someone before. Now, I say this because there's been so many other things that they are very overprotective about, especially when it comes to my dating life and me spending time with my boyfriend, that I honestly just don't want to get into. Also, I live with my parents and siblings, and I see and speak to them every single day, so it's not like I'm abandoning them or never gonna see them again. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk because your dad literally said the day before that a family dinner is not happening. So for your mom to suddenly be like, oh yeah, we're gonna be eating in like 2 hours, you need to be here. It's like, nope, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You literally made commitments somewhere else and you have to honor those. Plus, your family never eats together for dinner. Like, this is not something that ever happens, and it literally almost seems spur of the moment, all because you're deciding to go somewhere else. Like, it really comes off like your mom is just using this as an excuse to be petty, instead of this being some like legitimate criticism about you and the family. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here, and if anything, I think your mom's being a petty weirdo, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is completely unhinged, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. Am I the jerk for calling my mom a toddler and telling her that I no longer trust her with my money, because after she scammed me out of my reimbursement for buying Thanksgiving dinner, I now seriously don't trust her, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I went grocery shopping on Thanksgiving for the household, which for the record, I couldn't afford, but I was also operating on the assumption that my mother would reimburse me the cost, as she had agreed to do so before I left. I also kept it under $150 as also agreed upon. However, today she gave me only a portion of that money, and in the note that she left me, she noted that she had given me the money and implied that I had been lying about the costs in order to get more money out of her. I showed her my recent transaction history proving that I wasn't lying, but she then accused me of misremembering what she had agreed to. She said to me, I never said I would cover everything. I only said I would give you some of the money. Now, as an important side note, she is convinced that I'm lying about virtually everything because when I was younger, I had manipulated her various times out of desperation in some kind of attempt to hang out with my friends friends and combed the city for extracurricular activities. She was one of those parents who were obsessed with crime statistics, so she never allowed me to venture beyond a mile away from home regardless of the time or day. And as a result, the nature of my friendships were shallow, given that I didn't have the opportunity to cultivate more meaningful bonds beyond the confines of school. Now, admittedly, this loss is relatively small. I'm a broke college student on financial aid whose pay was docked this month due to my boss's absence. Together, both my grandmother and I cover the majority of household expenses, and every dollar counts. So now I'm in an even bigger hole. But I was more upset about the fact that she's gone back on an agreement, especially how contemptuous she is of me for having done the same in the past. Now, I told her as much, and she predictably launched into a tirade about how I'm perpetually dishonest. But I haven't lied to her since the previously mentioned moments. I said that it's unfair for her to judge me, especially according to some of my worst moments in my life, and to continue to resent me for exhibiting developmentally appropriate behavior that she'd react to in such an immature manner disproportionate to the offense. Like she would storm away and slam doors and refuse to talk to me for 48 hours and accuse me of wishing that she hadn't been born, especially when I tried to explain why I had felt compelled to lie to her. I asked if she would berate a baby for crying in public or scream at a toddler for climbing something they weren't supposed to. I said if she was too much of a toddler to understand why it's ridiculous to hold a grudge against your child for doing something children typically do, then it is not my problem, and I don't care to waste my time trying to get back in her good graces. I also thanked her for teaching me a valuable lesson, that I am never going to trust her with my money ever again. Well, after that conversation, she stormed off to her room and has texted me the following: "Do not text me, do not call me, and do not email me, because according to you, I'm a 2-year-old, and toddlers are not parents. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do?" No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your mom lied to you, and she basically made you buy Thanksgiving dinner for free. Sure, she gave you some money, but she went back on your verbal deal that yes, she would cover the money. Like, that is honestly so dishonest, it's not even funny. And that would really upset me, especially if I was a student and my budget was so set in stone. Like, I'm willing to bet you don't have a lot of money to throw around in the first place, so the fact that she took advantage of you when you had no money to begin with, like, that is crazy to me, and there's no good excuse. So no, you're not the jerk for telling your mom off, because if I was in your shoes, I would also never trust her with any of my money. Am I the jerk for calling out my friend for her rude comments after she said some brutally harsh things to a mutual friend, all under the guise that she was just being quirky and different? Because right now, I've apparently really offended her, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I have a friend who we will call Sarah, who's always been kind of unique. She's one of those people who prides herself on being quirky and different, and while I completely get that, sometimes it crosses a line into being rude or inconsiderate. She will often interrupt people mid-conversation to share her random thoughts, even if it's completely off topic. She's also really loud and makes awkward comments about personal things, such as asking a couple if they'd ever consider an open relationship at a dinner party, or commenting on someone's weight without any kind of filter. I have talked to her about it in a nice way before, saying that sometimes it feels like she's not really paying attention to the social dynamics or how others might feel about her comments, but she brushes it off by saying, "I'm just being myself. You can either take it or leave it." Well, this weekend we were at a gathering, and she made a huge scene by loudly criticizing a mutual friend's new haircut. Now, it was a bad haircut, but she didn't need to say anything. At that point, I finally snapped, and I told her that she's not being quirky, she's just being rude, and it really is starting to get on my nerves. Well, after I said that, she was really upset. She said I was trying to suppress her personality, and that I don't appreciate her for who she is. And now she's been ignoring me, and our friend group is completely divided. So am I the jerk for calling her out, or should I just let her continue with her stupid, quirky behavior? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, because this really is inconsiderate. It feels like dealing with that one friend who's like brutally honest, where they say what's ever on their mind and then try to be like, well, that's just who I am. I am just a brutally honest person. Take it or leave it. Like, that type of person and the person that Sarah is, in my opinion, are cut from the same cloth. But in this case, the delivery is more funny than the other person. And honestly, I can't stand people who act like this. If you're really that socially inept, where you legitimately don't see that you're offending people around you, then that doesn't mean that you're some kind of like bold person. That means, in my opinion, that you're a social pariah, and you clearly have no social skills even to begin with. I mean, come on. Who in their right mind would ask a couple if they've ever considered an open relationship? She had better know that couple really well to ask that kind of question, or she really is just too dumb to see that this is not something you ask people. So no, you're not the jerk for calling her out, because her rude behavior absolutely deserves to have consequences. Because because her comments, in my opinion, are incredibly offensive. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.